They should let her respond. God, I have such a good response. I could be Palestine's strongest warrior. The easiest, like the biggest counter to that is...
Here's what I want to know, Connor. And look,
what the f are we... What is happening here? Soros, the Jew, leading protests against the Jews. Oh. In the end, the only people that could have finally stopped these goddamn Jews from taking over Western civilization were our own woke Jews. Jew-on-Jew action is the only way to stop them. Jesus Christ.
And you brought up a good point. Why do they all have the exact same color tents?
Oh, wait, what the If they're doing big Israel-Palestine debates and they need other pro-Palestinian debaters, I would gladly join these on the pro-Palestinian side. The lack of pushback here was wacky and wild. You're right, Adam, I didn't listen. What was one hard fact that he presented to show? Was it that all the tents were the same color?
All right, thank you. All right. Well,
why does this guy's body and like shoulders make him look like he's like a Blizzard character? Do you think? Like, Blizzard characters always have, like, the huge shoulder armor things. Jesus.
Outside of Israel, the pro-Palestinian protests have disrupted colleges all across the United States. Here's some headlines. Columbia in New York City. Columbia protesters seize building as anti-war demonstrations intensify. Columbia University is now policy-making Senate votes for a resolution calling to investigate school's leadership. Harvard, anti-Israel protests fly Palestinian flag in spot reserved for the American flag. Horror as GW, George Washington University protester carries Nazi final solution call for the extermination of Jews signs. And then ultimately, college kids are now finally...
So first of all...
What do you think they're right about? What do you think they're wrong about?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, Columbia University is my alma mater. That's where I went to. Right out of the Army, I actually started university at UCLA before transferring to Columbia. And I realized that what was going on college campuses already then, and even before my time, where there are groups that claim to be pro-Palestinian. And the reason I say they claim to be pro-Palestinian is because when Palestinians are dying by the thousands in the Syrian civil war, they don't talk about them. When they're by the hundreds of thousands of refugee camps in Lebanon and in Jordan, they don't mention them. When they're suffering under Hamas, when they're suffering under the Palestinian Authority, or on the border of Gaza and Egypt, there's no mention of them. They only talk about Palestinian suffering when it has to do with Israel. Now, of course, there's a lot of Palestinian suffering when it has to do with Israel. These are my cousins, so I care about them. But if you take instances of Palestinian suffering only when it fits your agenda, you remove the entire context as to how we even got into this situation, to understand it and to correct it, and use it as political ammunition to delegitimize my connection to the land and my identity. What's really going on is an attempt to convince the future political and intellectual class of the next generation, which is what universities create. The next politicians, the next businessmen, the next people in media are coming from the universities, and convincing them that if they want to make the world a better place, they have to be against Israel. Now, I realized this when I was at UCLA. I realized also that within the Jewish community, we had a lack of activism ourselves. You don't want to hear about black rights from KKK members. You don't want to hear about women rights from misogynists. So are the only people talking about Jewish rights are those that are anti-Israel and anti the Jewish people. So I went on Google and I typed in #1 most anti-Semitic university in North America. Columbia University was listed #1, as clearly was.
And that's the guy from the video? Yeah, I saw him in the video, and then he reached out to me on Instagram, and then we had breakfast a few days ago. So I'm familiar with his backstory and everything. He's pretty well spoken. I can't tell if he's like, his background is pretty exceptional. He sounds like he's a Mossad plant. If anybody was, okay, it's this guy. But he seems like a reasonably smart. He comes off as compassionate, but I haven't like dug into him a lot to see if he's like pushing farther right than it seems. I don't know. Maybe he is.
Where you went to school.
And I transferred there, and I created a grassroots student movement that wasn't right-wing, left-wing. A lot of our work was actually bringing in Israelis and Palestinians for people to understand. And our
what video? It was the protester one.
Our goal was to empower, to narrate, and to protect, meaning to empower our own core students, Jews and non-Jewish allies, to be able to stand up for themselves, narrate our story using a language that communicates who we are, and to make sure to counter any and every single anti-Semitic movement that existed. What's happening on college campuses is an attempt to indoctrinate the next generation.
Don't you ever get tired of always covering such heavy topics? How are you not burned out? You need some positive topics where you start cracking. I don't know. I think it's entertaining. It's not like that heavy. This might sound mean, but let's be honest. I'm not Jewish at the end of the day. None of this shit really affects me. None of it really affects you. We're just like, we're studying other people basically in a Western laboratory, right? It sounds cold, but I mean, like, truthfully, it doesn't have a direct impact on us. Like, if this was like studying like the chances of me dying from some heritable disease or whatever, it might get heavy, but.
And to manipulate the empathy that they have for
Oh, speaking of personal health. Okay. Minor drug question. Can somebody make an effort post on my subreddit or email me, okay? Does drinking acidic stuff, and please don't email me some bullshit if you just like read a Reddit thing and you're just forwarding it to me. If you feel like you have a good understanding of it, does drinking acidic stuff actually reduce the potency or effectiveness of like an amphetamine? Is that true? Like if I drink a Red Bean after, or a Red Bull after taking a Vyvanse, am I like dissolving my medicine to make it worthless? Somebody find that out for me, okay? I'm curious because I see it pop up every now and then, but somebody else will always say that's bullshit, it's not true, and they go back and forth, so send me the email. I just want to know.
Empower our own core students, Jews and non-Jewish allies, to be able to stand up for themselves, narrate our story using a language that communicates who we are, and to make sure to counter any and every single anti-Semitic movement that existed. What's happening on college campuses is an attempt to indoctrinate the next generation and to manipulate the empathy that they have for legitimate Palestinian suffering, and to ride on that to give them a zero-sum game narrative that if you want to be pro-Palestinian, you must be anti-Israel. And the reality is, if you're anti-either population, you're anti-both, because there's no future where either will disappear.
That's true. The problem is that like what both sides want, like if this middle line is where you have to come to in order to actually get things done, you have like Israel is willing to go this far and like Palestine is willing to go like this far. Like at least right now at this moment, no side really wants to go as far as they need to actually reach a resolution. And as long as you continue to pit both sides against each other, they're never going to.
So, very interesting. You Googled the _1 anti-Israel university.
Anti-Semitic university.
Anti-Semitic university.
Same thing.
I like saying anti-Israel or Jewish hate.
Yeah.
Your friend taught me that.
Yes.
Because anti-Semitic, what is Semitic?
I hate this talking point. Everybody knows what you mean when you say it. This weird. Now, actually, this guy actually might go into it. He'll try to argue that, like, well, actually, the Semitic peoples includes Palestinians, a whole bunch of blah, blah, blah. But, like, when you say anti-Semitic, I'm pretty sure that term came about to describe, like, anti-Jewish stuff, anti-Semitic stuff. I mean, like, if you say, okay, well, let's just say anti-Jewish instead. But, like, anybody that pretends not to understand what anti-Semitic means, I think is silly. Like, it's pretty obvious what we're talking about.
Like, Jews don't run around being like, Semites, we rule.
Right.
Semites is you come from a region.
Right.
You could be Arab and Semitic. So,
Correct.
to me, it's a very loose terminology. Anti-Jewish?
Yeah, Jewish hate.
Makes sense. Jewish hate. Anti-Israel makes a lot more sense to me. So you Google this word, and Columbia University comes up. But then, there's how many Jews in the world?
There's 15 million recognized Jews.
15 million Jews, okay? 6 million.
Oh, I think he's going to try. He also makes an interesting argument that there's actually way more Jews. I thought this was actually clever. He does some project called like the 12 tribes of Israel or the 12 tribes of some bullshit. And he's trying to say actually there's like 50 million Jews. We need to get these guys to recognize they're Jews so that they can come back to Israel. Then we can do a one-state solution because we'll have so many Jews here, the Palestinians won't outnumber us, which is a funny, interesting way to do it. That would solve all the problems, but...
Million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
What percent of the Jewish population was deceased by the Holocaust? I think it was 50%, wasn't it?
Outside of Israel, the most Jews are where? In the United States.
Correct.
But in the United States, the most Jews reside in New York City. There's about 1 million Jews who live in New York City. The vast majority of Jews live in major cities, New York City, LA, Miami, right, where we grow up, where Aaron lives as well now. 1 million Jews in New York City. Walk me through, so if you went to Columbia is in Harlem.
It's near Harlem, just south of Harlem.
I've spent time there. One of my best friends went to school there and actually went to medical school there. So I've spent time at Columbia. Walk me through how you think this works, this logic works. The most Jews outside of Israel live in the United States. The most amount of Jews that live in the United States live in New York. But in New York, Columbia University, the most amount of Jewish hate stems from. Walk me through this logic, if you can.
Well, let me give you some more numbers. In New York City, the Jewish population is...
He should have been like, have you ever lived near Jewish people? I'm just kidding. In a video game.
It's 13% of the population, right? A minority. But yet over 60% of total hate crimes against any minority is specifically against the Jews. And that's before October 7th, for which anti-Semitism has skyrocketed in these different places. So it's clearly there's an obsession against the Jewish people. Now, you might first be surprised by where there's a lot of Jews, there's a lot of anti-Semitism. How does that make sense? Yeah. But if we look at the Holocaust, it really started out of Berlin. There are many Jews in Berlin as well. So it's not because you have many Jews in a place that is prone to not being going through some sort of anti-Semitic experience. Quite to the contrary. Usually societies reject the Jewish people and blame us for all problems, and they blame us in places where we exist. And that's what's happening also in New York.
So these student protests, I want to understand this. From your perspective, I asked you straight up, I said, do you have any pro-Palestinian friends? You said, Adam, I am that friend. I'm that. Why do you think these college kids, these woke, progressive college kids, as they're being labeled, are so anti-Israel and so pro-Palestine?
I guess I would take umbrage with the framing of the question because I don't know that they're anti-Israel per se. I think the demands of the college protests are very clear. They want their campuses to divest from Israel so long as the hostilities and bombardment in Gaza is going on. They want amnesty from any repercussions and punishment and fallout as a result of the protests. And they also want more transparency with Colombia's financial ties to Israel. I think
one of the things that I really appreciated, I don't know if he was more sane here or if just it depends on if he's shitposting or not. If you're like a pro BDS person and you try to do this oh no, we're not anti-Israel. No, I don't think anybody believes you anymore. Finkelstein actually had a really good ramble on that.
I think the means are right, but the goal will never fly. You want to say you're agnostic on Israel? You want to say you want one state? There's nothing in the international law for one state.
It might be
You're not going to win a public to that. Once you step out of your little coat, your little ghetto, and you enter the real world, and you try to reach a broad public, and you say, we are a rights-based organization, which is what BDS likes to say, and we want to enforce our rights. Okay, the law. So once you step out of your ghetto, you're no longer just talking to yourself. There is the other side. They also make themselves heard. So they say, no, that's not true. They're lying. They say they want to enforce the law, but they really want to destroy Israel. They want to eliminate Israel. So now the public hears both sides. And they come back to the Solidarity Movement, and they say, is that true? You want to destroy Israel? And then the Solidarity Movement says, oh, we don't have a position on Israel. We don't take a position. Oh, really? You don't take a position on Israel? Well, then we're not going to take a position on BDS. The law is clear. You want to use the International Court of Justice on your side? Okay, the International Court of Justice, it said, the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, they are occupied Palestinian territories. That's correct. But the ICJ also said that pre-June 67 border is Israel's legal border. That's their country. That's the law. You want to promote one state? Fine, that's your right. But then don't pretend you're trying to enforce the law. That's not true. You want to selectively enforce the law. There is nothing anywhere in the international consensus for resolving the conflict.
He talks further about this, but basically, a lot of people that do BDS kind of pretend oh no, well, it's not that we're necessarily against Israel or blah, blah, blah. We just want to fully divest from every single company that has anything to do with them or sells it or trades or anything with them until they've completely and totally either dissolved their state or reached some fight. It's just take the position that you're opposed to the country at the moment. But I think they're worried about that because they don't want to be seen as anti-Semitic or something, I guess. Yeah.
And they also want more transparency with Colombia's financial ties to Israel. I think these are reasonable demands that don't necessarily constitute anti-Israel sentiments.
Okay, so fair enough.
I'd like to respond.
Yeah, they're anti-war. Respond to this. Cue up that Joe Scarborough clip from Dave Rubin if you can. Go ahead.
So if that were the case, then I definitely agree that would not necessarily be anti-Semitic, because I don't know one person in Israel that doesn't criticize the Israeli government. There's nothing wrong with criticizing a government, but we have to be specific. What are the policies that we disagree with? What would we like to see? What are the actions that we're against with? Not just these blanket terms and being against an entire society or country, but being specific with where the problems are. But when you look in college campuses, they're calling for the intifada. Intifada literally means to kill Jews. They're promoting Hamas terrorists. They're wearing Hamas head.
I always forget what this means. I don't think intifada stands for kill Jews. Oh, shaking off? Uprising or shaking off? I'm being a bit pedantic, but I mean, it doesn't technically mean kill Jews, right?
For the intifada, against an entire society or country, but being specific with where the problems are. But when you look in college campuses, they're calling for the intifada. Intifada literally means to kill Jews. They're promoting Hamas terrorists, they're wearing Hamas headbands, they're pushing Jews out, they're preventing Jews from going to classes. So it's not just being pro the Palestinians, it's completely turned into being against Israel and against the Jewish people. And that's from every single Jewish experience on college campuses. My brother is at Columbia University. He's landing right now from the airport because he cannot go to classes anymore.
Yeah, and Holocaust also doesn't technically mean kill Jews. Okay. But I don't know what the point of that comment was.
So this situation that's erupted is basically he now has to take online classes because he's no longer safe to come into Columbia's campus. That's no longer a political statement saying we want to help the Palestinians come out of their situations, and so we're going to put pressure and we're going to target specific companies who profit from the war, so that's why we're against them. And even the boycotting, it's not boycotting of specific companies, it's boycotting of anything related to Israel. Even a film, even a musician, even a person. Now just because you're Israeli, we need to boycott you. Right?
Yeah, this is unhinged. This is the problem with these things. Also, I don't know if he's aware of this, but I think Erin is kind of lying when she says that people are all they want is transparency. I don't believe the call for the wait, fuck, can I look this up? Can somebody find me the list of demands? Because they said they wanted transparency, but it wasn't just transparency. It was transparency and full divestment of every single thing that they find on the transparency thing. So it wasn't just transparency. It was like, I want you to show me who so we can get rid of everything that you're associated with. It wasn't just transparency. Rose Rist talked to us about this when he was on. List of demands, Columbia student protesters. Let me check. Let me make sure on that. Wasn't there like an actual list of things somewhere published, like that I can see? Or, oh, we have a list of demands. Number 1, financial divestment. Divest all Columbia's finances, including the endowment, from companies and institutions that profit from Israel apartheid, genocide, and occupation of Palestine. What does that mean? Whew, that's broad. Ensure accountability by increasing transparency around financial investments. Academic boycott, sever ties with Israeli universities, including the Global Center of Tel Aviv, the dual degree program with Tel Aviv University, and all study abroad programs, fellowships, and research collaborations with Israeli academic institutions. That's wild. I don't know why you would ever even want to do that, unless you literally think they're engaged in like hardcore propaganda and shit. But stop the displacement, no land grabs, whether in Harlem. Okay, don't give me this. No policing on campus, and the targeted repression of Palestinian students and their allies on and off campus, including through university disciplinary processes. Defund public safety, Jesus, and disclose and sever all ties with the NYPD. End the silence. Release a public statement calling for an immediate permanent ceasefire in Gaza, denouncing the ongoing genocidal campaign against the Palestinian people, and call on government officials to do so too. Jesus Christ. But anyway, I'm only bringing that up because the
Now, from the airport, that's to be wearing
demands, and they also want more transparency with and the hostilities and village protests are very clear. They want their campuses to divest from Israel so long as the hostilities and bombardment in Gaza is going on. They want amnesty from any repercussions and punishment and fallout as a result of the protests. And they also want more transparency with Columbia's financial ties to Israel. I think these are reasonable demands that don't necessarily constitute anti-Israel sentiments.
Okay.
Like, you're talking about cutting off dual enrollment programs from Israeli universities? It's really hard. Again, this is why, but I think you can argue that it's fine to be anti-Israeli, much the same that, like, is it okay to be anti-Chinese? The country, anti-China, I should say, I'm sorry. Or is it okay to be, like, anti-Syrian? Like, you can argue it. I just think you should own that argument and fight on those grounds. Like, Israel as a country, engages in these activities. I wouldn't want to do a student exchange program with Nazi Germany. I don't want to do but make that argument. Don't do this weird, like, oh, no, it's not like anti-Israel. We just don't want to have anything to do with even their students. Like, that's a kind of a bullshit position, I think.
They're promoting Hamas terrorists.
I also haven't seen anything. I don't think we saw anything that said they wanted to divest while the they said Israel apartheid, genocide, and occupation of Palestine. So they're talking about a full divestment until literally a solution happens, until the Palestine-Israeli thing is solved as well, not just for the current war or not just for current attacks. Yeah.
They're wearing Hamas headbands. They're pushing Jews out. They're preventing Jews from going to classes. So it's not just being pro the Palestinians. It's completely turned into being against Israel and against the Jewish people. And that's from every single Jewish experience on college campuses. My brother is at Columbia University. He's landing right now from the airport because he cannot go to classes anymore. So the situation that's erupted is basically he now has to take online classes because he's no longer safe to come into Columbia's campus. That's no longer a political statement saying we want to help the Palestinians come out of their situations. And so we're going to put pressure and we're going to target specific companies who profit from the war. So that's why we're against them. And even the boycotting, it's not boycotting of specific companies. It's boycotting of anything related to Israel.
Yes.
Even a film, even a musician, even a person. Now, just because you're Israeli, we need to boycott you. Right?
Haven't you? Hold on. I want to make sure I'm looking everything up here, so I'm not making this up. I don't want to be incorrect about any of this. Weren't there calls to like boycott like Gal Gadot? But I don't know when I say were there calls to boycott her. I mean, who's calling? Is it random people on Twitter, or is it like actual like protest leaders? Or I don't know if I would even be able to find a central thing. Eurovision. Israel Eurovision controversy. To be fair, that was before October 7th. I thought I saw stuff that happened recently, like within the past month. But I'm looking all this up because I want to make sure that it's not like I'm not just like looking at some crazy people. I just don't give a fuck. Eurovision. Eden Golan is your representative of this year's Eurovision Song Contest, performed a controversial song "October Rain" at a rally in Tel Aviv on Saturday night, held in support of hostages taken by Turkey. Is this like written for October 7th, or is this like a real song? I have no idea. This marks her first onstage performance since the contest, which was originally written for the Eurovision Song Contest in Switzerland, was disqualified by the European Broadcasting Union for its perceived political messaging. Really? October Rain lyrics. I'm just curious if there's like anything especially egregious. Oh, hold on. This is where they're hiding the real shit. How do I translate it? You're not going to fool me. You're not fooling me, Mossad. There is no air left to breathe. There's no place. I'm going day by day. They're all good children. Okay. This doesn't really seem like there's anything crazy offensive here. Or I'm sorry, there isn't even anything like remotely offensive here. After multiple rejections of different versions of the song, claiming that it contains references to the October 7th massacre of Hamas in Israel. Hamas surprise attack out of Gaza stuns Israel. Okay. I thought they were going to link to the references. October Rain. Yes, I'm aware of that. But like a song can refer to a thing, but the lyrics and everything don't really, I'm about to make up shit. I don't know if this is real or not. John Mayer has a song called Covered in Rain. I've listened to this on stream before. Isn't this about 9/11? But it's not like referred to at all. There's no reference to it in here, other than like the standing in line watching CNN or whatever. I think this was inspired by 9/11. Am I making this up? And then there's a Linkin Park song I listened to. No, it's got that dumb guitar solo because I can't play guitar, but I still love them. What am I thinking of? 6 feet underground now. All right, what is this fucking? The fuck is the name of this song? The Little Things Give You Away. Wasn't the song inspired by Hurricane Katrina, or am I making this up? Damn, doesn't even meet the... I feel like I heard these things, but I'm not... Now I want to look everything up to make sure they're actually true. The lyrics critique the government response to Hurricane Katrina in 2005, specifically the leadership of then President George W. Bush. Yeah, okay. But I'm just saying that, like, would you ban these songs because they're, like, about a thing, even if they don't really, like, make references to it? I don't know. It just seems silly to me. But, okay, whatever. Anyway, yeah. The boycotts went further than just, like, boycotting missile companies trying to bomb Israel, yeah. Or trying to bomb Palestine, yeah.
You're an American. Would you want someone to boycott you because you might not agree with Trump or Biden or any president that comes around and they're against that person, and so now you're automatically associated to that? So it's presented on a surface level as it's pro-Palestinian, which I'm also that pro-Palestinian friend, right? I'm more than pro-Palestinian because Palestinians are my cousins. They're my family, right? I'm pro-human life, but Palestinians are in even closer degree closer to me. But it's now being used as we're going to pretend to care about the Palestinian in order to really fulfill our goal and our agenda, which is to attack the Jewish people and delegitimize our connection to our homeland.
You keep saying the Palestinians are your cousins.
Yes.
Walk me through that logic. I don't see a lot of Jews or Muslims, for that matter, or Arabs saying, my family, my mishbuch, I love you, I miss you. I see a lot of, I kill you, please don't. Like, walk me through that. Your family is from where originally?
So originally every Jew's from Israel.
This motherfucker is huge. I swear, he looks like a Blizzard character. Absolutely.
We were displaced 2,000 years ago. Some of us stayed on the land, and we had different diasporic experiences. Part of my family went to North Africa, to Algeria and Morocco. The other part of my family survived the Holocaust in Poland and Belgium, leading to my parents both being born in France, me being born in France. But wherever we are as Jews, the reason we're called Jews is because we were kicked out from a land called Judea. It is not our religion. It's the portable version of our ancient civilization. And so as Jews, we come from Judea, aka Israel. As Israelites, this is where we're from. This is where our culture was born, rooted to, and belongs to. Now, Palestinians, first of all, Arabs in general are our cousins. Sem, we were talking about Semitic. Sem is a person. He's the child of Noah. Now, the descendants of Sem are the Semites who are living in the Middle East. So all Middle Easterners are part of this Semitic family. Today, the word Semitic is really talking about a language, a Semitic language. So Arabic, Amharic, Hebrew, Arabic, all sorts of languages that are Semitic languages. Now, specifically the Palestinians, what's fascinating is that 30 to 60% of them in total descend from Jews that were converted to Christianity and Islam over time. And if you go to places like Haifa, Jerusalem, Yafo, Yatta, Safed, Tzfat, Shechem, Hebron, places that are actually ancient Jewish villages, 80 to 90% of their DNA is Jewish DNA. So it's more than just an Arab.
When he was talking to me, he said that you can find these people in like Africa as well. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I bring that up, but they're like African tribes that are like descendants of Semitic people or whatever.
Jewish cousin relationship. We're even closer to them. And so once we start understanding that, we no longer see each other as outsiders. Many Jews that are, let's say, on the far right will look at Palestinians and say, oh, you guys are a bunch of foreign Arabs who've come and poured into the land and you don't belong here. And many extremist Palestinians will say, oh, well, the Jews are a bunch of fake white Europeans who've come from the outside. But once we understand that historically, genetically, linguistically, culturally, archaeologically, anthropologically, we descend from the same roots.
deadbeat dadism, homophobiaism, racism.
It's much harder to reject one another.
But do you think people, I guess, to put it bluntly, care about that? Meaning, okay, great, you all came from the same place, the biblical Moses, Abraham. They're like, yeah, but what about today? There's a like. Do you think those protesters care about what he just asked? What he just said?
The protesters aren't going to be monolithic. I'm sure there's going to be people that actually agree with a lot of what he just said. There's going to be dissenting opinions. I think you'd probably see a lot of ideological diversity within this movement if you went up to each individual protester and asked them their thoughts and feelings. I wouldn't want to like...
Ideological diversity? Like the diversity you would find in a toilet. No shot.
Like, give a blanket statement and speak for any like protests as a whole. Protesters as a whole, I think they'd have to articulate that themselves.
So there's being idealistic, and like, I would love... Like, would you say that you're idealistic? Like, meaning, like, I believe that we can all get along and live together one day.
I would say that every person that changed history was idealistic and was told that they were idealistic and utopian by people who didn't believe so. And because they didn't listen to them, they changed history.
Got it. So there's idealistic and realistic.
Correct.
I don't want to have a whole conversation about 1948 and then the Israeli independence and then the war of 1948 and then 1967 and the border and the 70s. I don't want to go there. But how realistic is it, especially with Hamas, a known terrorist organization, the Hezbollah, just to the north of Israel, the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea, Iran with their tentacles everywhere. How realistic that Israel will ever have peace in that region, especially with Gaza and the West Bank and Hamas running the show there? How realistic is it? Give me like 2% chance, 1% chance, 50%. What is realistic in the next 20 to 40 years?
Well, that it will eventually find a solution 100%. The question is how long, and it will depend on what we do. You know, if we had this conversation before 48th, a lot of people would say, well, how realistic is it that a Jewish state will re-exist back on their ancient homeland? And a lot of people deny that that was a possibility, and yet it's here. Or how will Israel survive? Or how will we ever have peace with Egypt? Nasser was the head against Israel and the creation of Israel, leading the entire Arab world, and yet this country now has peace with Israel. Jordan has peace with Israel. The Emirates have peace with Israel. Saudi Arabia might soon have peace with Israel. Maybe even Lebanon in our very near future after the war with Hezbollah might have peace with Israel. So things can change, but we need to go to the source. Now, Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Yes, there are many Palestinians who support Hamas, but Hamas does not represent the Palestinians. They're on their 18th year of their 4-year term. If we look at Hezbollah, Hezbollah does not represent the Lebanese people. Yes, you'll find many Lebanese who agree with that, but these groups are those who are controlling them, dominating them, and giving them horrible lives, and they are the ones who are causing the problem. So I like to separate Hamas from the Palestinians, and if I look towards a future with Palestinians included in that future with Israelis.
What is he advocating for, really? Peace with two states? So what he's trying to do is the maneuvering is kind of sophisticated. He's trying to undercut the key narratives that he feels divides Israelis and Palestinians. So, for instance, when you look at Hezbollah, people associate Hezbollah with like anti-Israel, like haters, basically. People associate Hamas with Palestinians. People associate the Houthis, with anti-Israel, right? So what he's trying to do is the first thing he wants to do is he wants to extricate all of these people from the Palestinians, okay? Hezbollah are not Palestinians. Hezbollah are a terrorist group, okay? Hamas does not represent all Palestinians. They're a theocratic dictatorship, okay? So the first thing is extrication of all of the non-negotiable people, all the things that you can't make peace with, right? So once you extricate all of that, then you have to look at the people and go, okay, well, listen, now also, okay, so we got rid of them, but we're still like so different because of our histories. Well, what if I made this argument that our histories are actually the exact same? Okay, we actually have similar bloodlines, similar families, we come from similar stock, like it's actually so similar. So we don't have any reason to be divergent in our ethnic or our ethnic, familial I guess, history on these lands either, in an attempt to like bring the people together that way. Now, whether any of this is possible or whether that latter thing is even true, I don't know. I haven't looked at like the GWASP or whatever of all the genetic ethnic descendants of whatever bullshit. I don't even know if that's true. And then even if it was true, I don't know if anybody would accept this. I'm not sure. But that's basically in his mind. That's what his goal is. His goal is to eliminate the divides between what he would consider the anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli government or militant bodies from the Palestinian people, and then to align the ethnic histories of Israeli and Palestinian people to show that they're very similar, and then through that work towards some one-state solution is essentially what he's trying to do. But again, I don't know
It does not include Hamas, of course.
Okay. I want to sort of put a ribbon on the student protest thing. You said that it's not monolithic, that they're not necessarily anti-Israel, they're anti-war, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting.
Do you think this will ever happen? Personally, no, I don't think so. But I mean, that's his goal. I think. Is this what his thing is called? What's this guy's name? There's a project that he's like working on called. Is it the Lost Tribes of Israel? Is it the 12 Tribes of Israel? He calls this. Oh, it might be Lost Tribes. Oh, yeah, he's working on a film. This should be this. But like this, his goal is to try to show that there's like a big ethnic alignment with people, and he's like, is this Samuel Jackson's distant cousin? A little bit, guys, maybe? Just a little bit? Come the fuck on. Hold on. Absolutely. Cousin. Not even distant cousin. I'd say cousin.
it's not the only war that's going on in the world, and it's certainly not the only war that's going on in the region. There's been the war in Yemen. There's been the war in Syria.
Sudan.
There's been a war in Sudan.
Fuck. I hope they go one level deeper. The always answer to this is like, oh well, I focus on this one because the U.S. supports them. There's no way that's true. If the U.S. wasn't supporting them, I don't think that the energy would change that much. But we'll see, or they would suddenly become okay.
There's been Lebanese conflict with. Why don't I see any other protests on any other campus? Afghanistan, Iraq, what's going on in Iran? Iran is going to put to death a rapper right now. We'll talk about that. Zero protests. Zero. We'll play this clip by Joe Scarborough. Why do you think it's only the Israel protests?
Well, I think the reason why is because people are uncomfortable with the fact that 34,000 Palestinians have died in Gaza so far. Over 25,000 have been women and children.
Okay.
And
wait, that's the worst argument to use, because if we start getting into numbers, the Israel-Palestinian stuff looks like kids' play, child's play to anything else going on in the Middle East. It has to be the only answer that they can give that's even semi-coherent is that the U.S. supports Israel.
when they see their government, the USA, directly supporting, aiding, and abetting this onslaught in Palestine and Gaza specifically, they're very uncomfortable by that. You know, like you can look at different, areas of conflict within the world globally, but the first question you have to ask yourself is like, is my government supporting that? Do I have a say over that? Like, for example, I don't have a say over the Uyghur genocide in China, right? My government's not directly funding that, but the United States is an ally to Israel, one of the biggest allies to Israel, and we are providing weapons, we're providing aid, and we are helping assist them in this. And I think that's what makes people particularly uncomfortable, and why in this moment people feel like it's important to seize upon all the public attention that's directed towards this conflict and try to channel it into something positive.
Fair enough. I'm going to show you this clip, and I want you to respond to this, but do you know who the biggest provider of funds to
Palestinians are? He's going to say either the United States or Israel. It's probably U.S.
the Palestinians are?
Maybe Qatar?
America. Do you know this?
With aid?
With aid.
Sure.
So, the running joke is we're providing bombs to Israel, but also food to the Palestinians. It's a very dicey conflict. Would you at least be willing to acknowledge Hamas is a terrorist group and they have to go?
I would agree that Hamas is a terrorist group, and I would agree that I don't believe that they're a good steward for Palestinian autonomy leadership.
Okay.
I think they're a brutal resistance group, and I think Palestinians deserve better than that. But I will say, just as a matter of principle, if I'm interested in seeing Palestinian statehood, Palestinian sovereignty, I do believe that Palestinians have to be able to make the choice who their leaders are going to be. But given the recent polling, Hamas doesn't enjoy that much support from Palestinians whatsoever. So I
don't know where that recent polling is or what that recent polling is pointing towards. I'd be curious what that is.
very, very unlikely that they're going to be reelected.
What are the approval ratings for Hamas in Palestine and Gaza these days? I think it's pretty high.
There's no even election to begin with. I mean, there was one election, and at that time, Hamas was running on a very different campaign than what it is today. In fact, it was presenting itself as better than Fatah, which is what the Palestinian Authority is, and that they'd be more...
That's Mahmoud Abbas's party?
Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, and that they'd be more willing to engage with Israel. Actually, many Israeli politicians were supporting the idea that Hamas would take over because it would be finally something new that we could negotiate with. And then Hamas turned to what it was. So even the fact...
I'm not familiar with any of what he just said. I would have to go back and read end of Second Intifada. I don't remember Israel ever being supportive, or the citizenry ever being supportive of Hamas. My recollection, I could be totally wrong on this, by the way, because this was one of the first events I studied, and I haven't gone back over it. But my recollection was that when the Second Intifada was coming to an end, and Israel was trying to negotiate some end, I think it would have been under Ariel Sharon was trying to negotiate some final end to the Second Intifada. Abbas was like just completely and totally unable to maintain authority in the Gaza Strip. That attacks were still happening from the Al-Qassam brigades, the Al-Quds brigades, I think is the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and then Hamas. And then eventually Abbas was like, I can't. They're not like, they want to fucking fight, I guess. And then they did their vote. The U.S. and everybody wanted to call an election. I thought the hope in calling the election was that Hamas wouldn't win. The hope was that that Fatah would win, and they didn't win. And then after Fatah didn't win, Israel looks to the Gaza Strip, and Abbas looks to the Gaza Strip, and like, okay, well, this is kind of awkward. So then the CIA and Israel wanted to help Fatah basically overthrow Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and then Hamas figured this out, and then they killed all the Fatah people, and they were like, no more elections, fuck you guys, and then that was it. This telling here of ending of Second Intifada, this would have been, I think, around 2005, around the disengagement time. I haven't heard what he's saying before. I'd be curious where he got this take from. This is either like a very, very, very far Zionist claim, or it's just history that I'm just not familiar enough with, which is possible.
There's no even election to begin with. I mean, there was one election, and at that time, Hamas was running on a very different campaign than what it is today. In fact, it was presenting itself as better than Fatah, which is what the Palestinian Authority is.
When they say better than Fatah, though, I think when they say better, wouldn't it have been better as in like we can represent the Palestinian people? Because remember, Fatah, part of the PLO, which was basically the ruling thing of the Palestinian Authority, was seen as a subjugated entity by Israel, right? The Palestinian people, under Arafat, the Palestinian Authority was just full of corrupt fucking losers that were stealing money. And then after that, it was just seen as basically like a security puppet for Israel. Like nobody liked the Palestinian Authority. And I think that's where a lot of Hamas's popularity came from. But I don't think it's because like the better option for Palestinian people wasn't like a peaceful one. It was like, we need to go to fucking war. That's my recollection. Yeah, better is in less corrupt. The Palestinian Authority has, I think, historically almost always been seen as extremely corrupt. Yeah, so that I could be wrong, but I don't think I agree with his telling of the history here.
This was running on a very different campaign than what it is today. In fact, it was presenting itself as better than Fatah, which is what the Palestinian Authority is, and that they'd be more.
That's Mahmoud Abbas's party?
Yeah, Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, and that they'd be more willing to engage with Israel. Actually, many Israeli politicians were supporting the idea that Hamas would take over because it would be finally something new that we could negotiate with. And
I've never heard that claim before, ever. No, I won't get into it. I think funny evidence against this would be that in Shlomo's book, this was written, I think, around 2004, and he talks. It's funny because he talks about like it would be really fucking bad if Hamas took over in the Gaza Strip. That would be really bad for us. Hopefully, this doesn't happen. So the idea that Israel was like excited to work with Hamas as a new partner, I've just never heard this claim before ever.
And then Hamas turned to what it was. So even the fact that Hamas was elected to begin with, I don't think we could go retroactively and say, oh, well, it proves that Palestinians truly wanted what eventually Hamas done. Also, there are many polls that talk about how Palestinians approve of Hamas. We have to understand there's no freedom of speech in Gaza. If you say something against Hamas, you disappear. So if someone is going around asking Palestinians...
To get into those polls a little bit more, man, I wish I had these on hand. You shouldn't just take my word for it. My understanding is that Hamas is extremely low approval, like 90% disapproval for Hamas. But they're still by far like 90% the most popular entity, right? So people want Hamas more than anything else, but people aren't happy with how Hamas is running things. That's my understanding of what that polling data showed. There was a name for like the Palestinian whatever poll. Somebody could link it. Maybe I could find those numbers, but that's what I remember seeing like 3 or 4 months ago. Aren't they in your notes? I don't know if I was taking notes as organized back then yet.
Palestinians in Gaza, what do you think about Hamas with Hamas militants next to them? They're probably going to say that they approve of Hamas. So I think even the polls are not accurate to represent what the people have. I think being...
Destiny was wrong about Kashmir in 2019. Did I know anything about... Did I even know where Kashmir was? What did I say about Kashmir in 2019? Wait, what? I don't know all about Indian, Chinese, Pakistani politics, bro.
They're probably going to say that they approve of Hamas. So I think even the polls are not accurate to represent what the people have. I think being in...
Wasn't Palestinian aggression what Israel wanted so they could be justified in absorbing Palestine under Zionism? No. Israel's never wanted Palestinian aggression. They kind of wanted Arab aggression early on, but they didn't really want that much because they didn't think they could handle the demographic shift, which, I mean, they couldn't. That's why the borders stopped in 48 where they were, and it's why there was a lot of hesitancy around like fighting in the West Bank and taking it over, basically. What exactly aren't they happy Hamas aren't doing? Not attacking Israel enough or being too conservative and authoritarian? My understanding is they're just not happy with Hamas as an administrator of the region. They just don't think Hamas is like taking care of the problems enough. I don't know if they were... I feel like the question on the poll was like, do you think Hamas is doing a good job leading in the Gaza Strip or something like that, I thought. And the approval for that was like 10%. That's what I thought it was. But they're still like, they are the most popular party. Like people still like Hamas more than like the Palestinian Authority. But you said in the Shapiro debate that Israel wanted war to continue for justifications of territory expansion. Yes, they've gone like back and forth over this at time, but like initially from 48 to 67, Ben-Gurion knew that capturing huge swaths of land represented significant issues for Israel because they didn't have the demographics to control that territory. That was a huge issue, and Israel was always aware of that issue. That's why when the 67 war rolled around and Israel pushes into the Sinai, well, Israel bombs Egypt, and Jordan goes to attack from the West Bank, Israel says, don't attack. They weren't looking to capture that territory there. If anything, at the onset of 67, Ben-Gurion was, I think the quotes from Ben-Gurion at that time was like, the time for Israel territorial expansion is over. Now it's time to be safe. Because in 67, there were a whole bunch of things that early Israeli leadership was trying to avoid. And 67 represented like the doomsday scenario that they never wanted, which was a united Arab front trying to destroy Israel, a country that had failed to secure any security guarantees from the West. So it was like the worst of all worlds, right? In 56, in the Suez Crisis, Ben-Gurion saw France and Britain and an opportunity to basically fuck with Egypt to win favor with those two powers, because people still were getting used to the fact that Britain and France weren't shit and the United States was the real superpower, right? So the Suez Crisis and that secret like war that they tried to do in 56, it was really just them trying to get security guarantees from the West, because they wanted some kind of guarantee that if they got fucked in a war, they weren't going to be eliminated, because Israel is always on the brink of annihilation in these early days. That's why that 56 war happened, at least in secret, although Nasser provoked the fuck out of it. But then after that war basically failed to be fruitful, and after the United States scolded the fuck out of Israel for even participating, so Israel has to withdraw and pull back. It's like, okay, well, fuck us, I guess. When 67 rolls around and they see like, all these Arabs around them are screaming for the elimination of Israel, it's like, okay, well, fuck us. Like, we have no guarantees from the West. Nobody's going to come and save us if we get fucking destroyed. And now we've got like a united front that we're facing from all the countries around us. So it was like a doomsday scenario for Israel at that point in time. So the idea that they wanted war at that point, I don't think is true. I haven't seen anything that would justify that. There was a general desire for fighting earlier on because they could expand territory, but I don't think Israel secured security guarantees from the West soon enough to feel comfortable expanding in 67. It was a combination of luck on their side, ineptitude on the Arab side. Yeah, I guess Israelis were just better politicians and better war strategists for whatever reason, for a whole variety of reasons. But
Gaza a few months ago. I know that Palestinians, for the most part in Gaza, are now rejecting of Hamas, seeing what they've done, seeing how they've treated their own civilians while they were living there, seeing the destruction that they've caused with what happened on October 7th and afterwards. So I say overall the Palestinians in Gaza are mostly rejecting of Hamas. It doesn't mean that they're pro-Israel. But there is one number that I did want to talk about. We're throwing around this number 30,000, more than 30,000, and we're not realizing that, first of all, it's completely inflated. But besides that inflation, 15,000 of that number are Hamas terrorists. There's no 30,000 plus civilians and the Hamas terrorists. We're including the terrorists.
Public opinion poll. This was on December of 2023. I believe there have been 2 or 3 taken since then. So immediately after, they still agreed that they were correct in launching the attack. Can I find what I was thinking about? This is satisfied or dissatisfied with the current, with their performance in the current war. Wait, it's from April 15th, figure 13. Oh, wait, hold on. Did you find? Hold on. Figure 13 or point 13? Oh, figure. Would you support deployment of an international force under the UN flag to temporarily police the Gaza Strip in order to end the current war? This? Oh, figure 13. Which scenario would you prefer? So return of Hamas here is really high in both the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Where can I find the how happy are you right now? There's a question about like, are you happy? Are you satisfied with how Hamas is like, it was independent of war. I just thought it was about their administration in the Gaza Strip. That poll was like, people were generally not very happy. I feel like I'm not going to be able to find this. I don't know. You guys don't look for it. Listen, just assume that I'm fucking lying, I guess, if I can't find it until. Good luck. Okay, sorry.
Of that number are Hamas terrorists. There's no 30,000 plus civilians and the Hamas terrorists. We're including the terrorists in the number. Mm-hmm. Now, many of those terrorists may be 17, 16 years old that went into Israel on October 7th, raped and killed people, and we're considering that that's a child, which, again, when we hear women and children, we're expecting 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. And what I'd like to say is one Palestinian civilian dead is one person dead too much. Because this is my family and I don't want to see one person dying. But when we take the terrorists and we include them in the number of the civilians dying, then it gives a false image of what's actually happening. So I don't want to talk less about what's happening. I want to talk more, but to be specific and to be accurate with the information.
Yeah, like we just saw the priest in Australia, Priest Marimar, that was just on the PBD podcast, I don't know, less than 6 months ago. He was stabbed, attacked by an Islamic extremist, teenager, 17 years old. By definition, he's a child. So if someone like that, an extremist of any capacity, is killed in a war, that is a child being killed in war. This guy tried to kill a priest. Secondly, we're also making the assumption that a woman can't shoot a gun or pull a trigger or throw a bomb. So
My understanding is that in general, I don't believe that women fight for Hamas. I've never heard that before, but they do suicide bombing attacks. I believe the first suicide bomber in the first Intifada, I think, was a woman. First suicide bomber, first Intifada. Suicide bomber phenomenon. Today, the suicide bomber has become a method of choice for many terrorist groups around the world. It's the, quote, poor man's F-16, end quote. Jesus Christ. What year is this published? In fact, 17 terror groups in 14 countries use suicide attacks as part of their tactics. It is low costing, simpler to plan, and relatively free of risk to the terror group. Since death to the bomber is almost certain, there is little chance that security forces will obtain sensitive information. The bomber has the flexibility to determine when and where to conduct the attack, thus maximizing casualties and, in turn, attracting the media. From 1980 to 2001, suicide attacks accounted for 3% of terrorist incidents, but caused half of the total fatalities due to terrorism overall. This is despite September 11th. Historically, suicide attacks have been conducted since the Assassins, an 11th century Muslim sect, introduced it as part of their strategy to advance Islam. However, using females as the primary method of employment is relatively new. First seen in the mid-1980s, which I believe would be First Intifada, right? Today, female suicide bombers are becoming more common, and as a result, the threat should not be underestimated or ignored. Terrorist organizations use females because, like most suicide operations, it's simpler to plan and low costing. In some parts of the world, females have low social status and therefore are considered more expendable. Females tend to be more emotional and therefore easier to indoctrinate. Squad W. Since bombers will most likely perish in the attack, there is little fear of them divulging information to security forces. Tamil black tigers carry cyanide pills just in case. Most are deliberately uninvolved in the planning in case of capture. The media coverage is extensive, especially if the attacker is female. Terrorists attempt to embarrass a powerful enemy and show the world that things are desperate, that women are now fighting. Most importantly, females have the element of surprise. Stealthier attack, they tend to draw less attention. In fact, on several occasions, many female bombers spoke English and wore Western clothing and makeup during the attack. Sensitivities in searching women, especially in conservative societies, female stereotypes, e.g. perceived as nonviolent, feminine, or motherly. Women increase the number of combatants to a group's depleted manpower. There is greater publicity for female bombers. It attracts recruits. The psychological fear factor of the target. Expect anyone can be a bomber. Statistically, the age group falls between 17 to 24 for female bombers. As of September 2006, the youngest successful female suicide bomber is thought to be Syrian Sanaa Muadli, 16 years old, in Lebanon in 1985. As of September 2006, the oldest may be Chechen Shakida Balmaratov, 46. Jesus. Okay, sorry, no more death pics. Profile of a female suicide bomber. Average age for a Palestinian is 21, mostly single, high school or better, and professional. Poor to middle class, motivation, Islamic fundamentalist, nationalist, or personal. Okay, anyway.
So nobody wants to see dead people. The images of dead babies anywhere, horrific. But something does need to be said about Hamas's entire blueprint, entire game plan, is they do embed themselves in civilian populations.
I can speak about that.
You were an IDF soldier.
Yes.
Like you did an interview that you were in Khan Yunis.
Yes, I was the first unit into Khan Yunis.
Which is, if you don't, there's Gaza City, There's Rafah that people are at, but Khan Yunis is what, the second biggest city?
So it goes, Rafah is the south one. That's where the crossing is. And then Khan Yunis is the big one. The last one, or no, they've already gone it. They're doing the Rafah attack now. Khan Yunis is the one to the north of that. And then to the west of Khan Yunis was that I say supposedly, fuck me. The safe zone, the beach, Al-Mawasi, I think. Al-Mawasi Beach, right? Am I making that up? Oh, no, don't mind me. This was the beach. This is the safe zone. Khan Yunis is, I think, the last. Or no, I'm sorry. I keep saying the last. Rafah is the last city that they're fighting in. Khan Yunis is the next city up here. And then up here, I think, is Gaza City, I think. And then the most northern one is, I actually don't know. It's Rafah, Khan Yunis. Aren't there two other large cities? Four largest cities in Gaza. I might be making that up. Khan Yunis, Jabalia. No, it is. Okay. Which part here? Where is like... Hold on. Okay. I don't know. I guess this is just Gaza City? The part that's named where Gaza says? I guess. Okay. Whatever.
Yeah,
that's where allegedly the leader of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, is hiding out. What was that experience like?
So for me, the war started as a reservist. I've been out of the army for 10 years. Actually, a lot of my work in the line is uniting Israelis and Palestinians so that we don't get into the situation. None of us want to see war. Unfortunately, on October 7th, we all know what took place with the massacres of the Jewish people, the rape, the burning, the cutting up into pieces, and I was called up into war. By 5 p.m., I was in Kfar Aza, which was one of the hardest hit communities that Hamas had hit on that date. Fought Hamas for 2 days, and then about a month later, our unit was taken into Khan Yunis as the first unit into Khan Yunis. When we got in there were no civilians. There was only one civilian that we saw. You know how you go on the streets and you see sometimes homeless people who have mental health issues and they're schizophrenic and they scream. So there was a woman who was just like screaming, and she clearly had mental health issues. She had been left behind for some reason, and so we took her and we brought her to where there were civilian refugees. That was the only civilian that we saw. We also saw leaflets that the IDF had sent that was written in Arabic that you have X amount of hours to leave because we're going to come in with a frontal entrance from the IDF, so make sure that everyone's gone. But in all the civilian areas, houses, schools, you had terror tunnels, right? Hamas had built the scene for a war zone knowing that we would go in and being prepared. In the houses, they were booby-trapped with explosives.
I feel like this guy's getting way more time to talk than Aaron is, but...
Kill soldiers on the way, which many of my friends, unfortunately, died in this combat. And Hamas would pop out, come at us, shoot, attack. I didn't say any women Hamas terrorists. I'm not saying that can exist. It was mostly men. It was mostly younger men. But unfortunately, that is the experience that we went through. Now,
did you cover the ICC's arrest warrant of Netanyahu? Yeah, I went over everything yesterday.
Have there been civilian casualties that have died? Of course. But in no time have those civilians been killed because Israel said, oh, there are Palestinian civilians, let's go and kill those individuals. Every single time Palestinians... I
would be really careful about saying no time has that ever happened. It's possible it's happened before. You should hedge that. That's a really absolute statement.
Civilians have been killed, which is horrible, the fact that this is happening, which is why we need to do everything to prevent ourselves from being in war in the first place. Every single time that civilians have died is because Israel was being fired at by Hamas. It needed to fire back. It warned the civilians to get out of place. Hamas forces those civilians to stay there. Israel shoots back and civilians die. This is there's like a layup for when did the WCK truck thing happen? Was it before 3 weeks ago? WCK attacks Israel was on April 1st. March. This is on April 30th. That was a long time ago. Yeah. Like that wasn't them getting shot at first, but what happens in war. But the difference is that Israel does everything to prevent civilian casualties and targets Hamas, while Hamas tries everything to maximize civilian casualties on both sides and specifically targets Israeli civilians. That is the difference here. So if we truly care about the problem of people suffering and dying on both sides, which I do, And we could be critical of the Israeli government. I have many critiques of the Israeli government. I mean, for 18 years, Hamas has been there. I didn't need to go into Khan Yunis to see all sorts of propagandas of teaching the youth how to hate the Jewish people in magazines, in comic books, in textbooks, in math books, in English books, of telling them the way to be an honorable person one day is to kill Jews. I didn't need to go there to know that that was happening. So why for 18 years has Israel allowed Hamas to exist, has allowed Hamas to manipulate its population, force its population to be in this loop of cycle of violence? Israel has the power, thus the responsibility to change the situation. So we can criticize Israel, but if we're going to talk about the situation, we have to be honest of what the intentions are of both sides.
Yeah, and very interesting. You made up a great point. In America here, in Israel, in any democracy, you're actually free to criticize the government. What happens if you criticize the government in Gaza?
Not just in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. I have many friends of mine that I work. Usually, you have to understand that the real leadership to Palestinians are not those in the Palestinian Authority and in Hamas. They're those who are local community leaders. You have different villages, they're almost tribal. And in each village, you have one ruling family, and the patriarch of that family is the person that says, okay, this person hit that person stole this is what I say, you give that person. And they're really the ones who represent their population.
And if you criticize them, what happens?
Now, they are usually very open-minded to working with Israel because they care about the future of their people. But if they stand up and say something against the Palestinian Authority, against Hamas, or even on behalf of Israel, not even something against their own people, saying we would like to see a future where we live with Israelis, they disappear. So there is no freedom of speech for Palestinians, and I think when many Jews from...
This is kind of consistent with what Palestinian leadership has looked like in the past. I don't know if it's actually true with the particular local leaders that he's talking about today. I don't know if that's true, but it would be consistent with stuff that's happened in the past.
My side, many Israelis are like, well, why don't we hear the voices from their other side? Well, they don't have freedom of speech. And that's also another big critique that I have for Israel is we need to create freedom of speech for Palestinians as well. If in the West Bank, there's a Jew living there who says something and all of a sudden a Palestinian goes and kills him, there's justice. The IDF will go find that person, try him, and they'll go to prison for what they did, dependent on what they did. If a Palestinian says something and another Palestinian kills him, Israel does nothing. Now, of course, they're under a different jurisdiction, but I think that Israel is important to enforce freedom of speech and the security of human life for every single individual. And if we did that, then we see other local leaders that would rise up and have different thoughts.
That's a very extreme statement. He's basically talking about bringing the Israeli military back as the policing force through all of the West Bank, Area B and Area A, that was previously handed off to the Palestinian Authority. That would be basically a total reversal of the Oslo Accords and every bit of independence Palestinians have gotten.
For the population.
I want to play this one clip from Joe Scarborough. I started the segment off talking about, I do think there is some sort of double standard when it comes to Israel. And you actually give a great example about American involvement. So you gave the example of I care about the Uyghurs, but we're not involved in China. But America has, I think, 800 bases all over the world. We have relationships with pretty much every country other than our enemies. We're everywhere. And we have, America, again, to your point, we can be as critical as we want here, and we can still do a show and show up to work the next day. Here's why I think you brought up the numbers. 30,000 people have died. It's horrible. It's disgusting. He kind of said, look, got to be kind of realistic with these numbers because at least half of them have been terrorists. Here's what Joe Scarborough had to say about the actual numbers compared to other countries and other wars.
Even with American wars, they don't add up.
I want to show you one more clip of that, of Scott Galloway on MSNBC. Here he is absolutely demolishing Mika Brzezinski. Mika Brzezinski, who
starts
is the
at 20
wife
seconds.
of Joe Scarborough. And, just watch this.
One of my pet peeves seems to be one of your pet peeves, and that is, 2 million people have been killed in the Sudan civil war. I haven't seen protested in NYU for that. Assad killed 500 Arabs. I didn't see colleges burned down. 500,000 Arabs killed by Assad.
Wait, 2 million people were killed in what civil war? The Syrian civil war? That number's isn't that number 10 times too high? Or what, did he say something else? I missed it. Hold on, I might have missed it. Oh, Darfur. Oh, my bad. Never mind.
Your pet peeves, and that is, 2 million people have been killed in the Sudan civil war. I haven't seen protested in NYU.
Sudan civil war. Yeah, okay.
Assad killed 500 Arabs. I didn't see colleges burned down. 500,000 Arabs killed by Assad. Saddam Hussein killed over 1 million Muslims in wars. I gassed them. I didn't see protests there. And yet your school is shut down right now because Israel is responding to the worst attack against Jews worldwide since the Holocaust. Help us sort through that.
And we can debate that response.
Again, I don't know algebra, but I'm pretty good at the common denominators here and why there's no common denominators in all of these. It's just that it's Jews defending their homeland. Because if you look at the numbers, even with American wars, they don't add up.
Well, first off, good to be with you, and I especially appreciate your leadership on this issue. I'll give you some more numbers.
I don't think it's just Jews. I think it has more to do with the other lefty shit, the colonialism, imperialism, cuck shit or whatever. I don't think it's just the Jew thing, although it does map on very cleanly.
Well, first off, good to be with you, and I especially appreciate your leadership on this issue. I'll give you some more numbers.
More numbers. Is he the argument against? Is he about to give the number of women killed, the number of children killed, the number of people facing starvation, IPC 4 or 5?
2,200 American servicemen killed at Pearl Harbor. We go on to kill...
Oh, never mind. Just kidding.
3.5 million Japanese, including 100,000 in one night. 2,800 Americans in 9/11. We go on to...
Oh, he's arguing in favor of them. He agrees with them, I think. My bad.
Kill 400,000 people in Afghanistan and Iraq. We weren't accused of genocide. You had, if Mexico had elected a jihadist cartel to run their country, and then they incurred into Texas, and on a per capita basis killed 35,000 people with the population of the University of Texas, and on the way back took the freshman class at SMU hostage and hid them under tunnels, what would we do? It'd be the Great Sonora radioactive parking lot. But Jews are not allowed, and Israel is not allowed to prosecute a war. And they are prosecuting a war more humanely than we have done. The ratio of combatants to civilians is, of civilian death to combatant mortality is lower than it was in Mosul, lower than it was in Japan, lower than it was in Germany. So there's just a different standard for Jews in Israel when it comes to prosecuting a war. They're allowed to fight back to a truce. But unlike America or any other Western nation that has attacked us viciously, they're not allowed to win a war. It's a double standard.
Man, Galloway is really good, right? Like that.
So I actually genuinely want to get your opinion on this, because you have a great response. You're like, look, they've killed 30,000 people. I don't want to see this. I want to see American involvement. In the majority of what they just talked about, Syria, 500,000 people.
I feel like these guys just yapped for like 15 minutes almost without like giving the other side a response, but okay.
Sudan, 2 million people. Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people between Afghanistan, Iraq. They pointed out World War II after Pearl Harbor. A couple thousand people died. We went and wiped out entire cities. None of these situations, when tens of hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people have died, was it called a genocide. Israel attacked October 7th, brutal, disgusting attack, which you know about all well too well. Waging a war. He said, listen, innocent victims are taken to war. It's horrible. 30,000 people. It's not anywhere near the level of hundreds of thousands or millions. Why do you think there's a double standard for Israel? He said to himself, Israel can only fight till there's a ceasefire. They can't actually win the war. Be unbiased. Why do you think that is?
I really don't feel like there's a double standard. Sometimes I feel like Israel is not held to any standard, just mostly because there are countless UN Security Council resolutions and other resolutions at the UN that Israel does not abide by. I feel like at this point they're attempting to find a military solution to what is at its root a political issue that's not going to be resolved unless the occupation ends, the blockade ends, and there are two states, or there's a settlement of the political conflict. There's Palestinian statehood, and there's the right of return granted to Palestinian refugees from the fallout of the Nakba, which was the day of catastrophe, or when over 700,000 Palestinians were expelled.
Do you believe that Israel is committing genocide right now?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But there's been multiple statements made by high-ranking Israeli officials. For example, just a few days into Operation Swords of Iron, which is what Israel calls this.
This is going to be a rundown of the ICJ's complaint from South Africa for Herzog, and it's going to be let's see if we can guess which one's going to be. One might be that we're fighting human animals. Another one might be the Almarak or the Alamak, or whatever the fuck that stupid fucking word is. Human animals, the Amalak. I think that's it. I don't know. And then we're going to cut off all their food, water, electricity. I'm going to guess it's those three, or one of those three.
This current onslaught. Yoav Gallant, the Israel, I think, defense minister, secretary, said that there's not going to, that was when they announced the total siege on Gaza, that there wouldn't be any food, any water, any electricity.
This is one of the other quotes, though, the food, water, and electricity one.
That was permitted into Gaza, and said that they were dealing with human animals and would act accordingly. There's also been other Israeli officials that said that they're going for damage, not precision. So I think you can inductively reason just based off of statements like that as an example, as well as the ridiculously high death toll, one of which constitutes a lot of minors. If you aren't comfortable with the term children, you could say minors, people under the age of 18 who may...
And then there's one where it's like, this is the most amount of children that have been killed in every single conflict since 91 or something.
Or may not have been involved in hostilities. That is big cause for concern for most people.
That's a big talking point, too.
What I love about this conversation, because I'm going to give this to you now. You're smart. You're not an idiot. You're not. Part of the narrative is that people in the protests are smart kids that go to very smart schools, but they're also known as useful idiots. They buy into propaganda. I'm not saying that about you.
I feel like we're not facilitating a good conversation here, right? I feel like they should be having more of a back and forth rather than he's asking each side a question and they're moving on.
But you have very strong feelings. I'm going to throw some stats your way, and then I'm going to give a very shocking question. And then I'm going to let him respond. You talk about genocide. Jews know a thing or two about genocide.
You actually coined the term.
They coined the term, right? It's kind of our thing, guys. City of Gaza. In 1990, 645,000 people live there. Today, 2.1 million, right? Not exactly a decline in population. World data, all of Palestinian population, 1990, 1.98 million. 2023, 5 million people. That's a 155% increase in the last 30 years. The numbers...
Wait, what? This is for Gaza and the West Bank?
All of Palestinian population, 1990. 1.98 million. 2023, 5 million people. That's a 155% increase in the last 30 years.
I mean, the total blockade is technically more relevant to the Gaza Strip, so you wouldn't look at the West Bank population, but...
The numbers don't support a genocide. So I'm going to give a very shocking question right now. If you believe it's genocide, why doesn't Israel just kill all 2 million people in Palestine? Why don't they just, in Gaza, why don't they just do it? Just, you know what? You think we're doing genocide? The numbers are the exact opposite. We're growing. We have nuclear weapons. We clearly could kill all these people, but we're trying to be very precise and not kill innocent civilians. So if we are going to do genocide, why don't we just kill everybody? Why don't you think they're doing that?
Because genocide isn't a question of how many people have died. Genocide is a question of intentionality with respect to certain ethnic populations. That's the conditions of which they were killed. So and people often bring this up, like if Israel were really committing a genocide, if they're one of the strongest militaries in the world, if they're backed by the United States, why wouldn't they maximize the amount of people? Well, that is true that Israel has a military that is more than capable of eradicating every single person in Gaza. But then there's also public opinion to take into account. There's international law to take into account.
But public opinion is already against them. So like, I'm posing the question, and I'm going to let Rudy go in here now. I firmly believe
Should you talk for like 1 minute and he's going to have the other guy talk? Okay.
there's embedded in many parts of society that there's just Jewish hate and they don't want the rights of Israel to exist. Example, October 7th happened. Israel didn't even have a chance to respond. You weren't even called into the military at this point. October 7th, October 8th, the world rejoiced. Israel hadn't fired one bullet. So don't tell me that there's no double standard, because clearly that was an example of that. I firmly believe, just by definition, that genocide is a reduction or a declination of population. They're multiplying like crazy.
That's not even remotely true. Your personal opinion on genocide is not relevant. What matters are the definitions as per the Rome Statute for individual crimes, and then the definitions or the protections against that are listed out in the Genocide Convention, right?
Well, you're actually a smart girl, but I'm actually pretty good at math. Genocide would be, there were 10 million Jews in Europe, now there's only 4 million. What happened to the other 6 million? Well, check the gas chambers, homie. In Gaza, there was 645,000, now there's 2 million. In Palestine, there was 1.98 million, now there's 5 million. I'm not seeing the genocide. Rudy, maybe I'm horrible at math, maybe I'm just pro-Zionist. What am I missing here?
I think really the beauty in this conversation is that on the long term, we probably agree on what we'd like to see. And I hope that we eventually do get to that, because at some point this conflict will end, and hopefully we'll be able to build off of those ideas. There are a lot of things that you said that I disagree with respectfully, and things that you've quoted of ministers who called people animals, which I think is deplorable language, but he was specifically talking about Hamas, not about Palestinians. Now, the reason why you believe that is because you read it in the newspapers that said, look at this minister who called Palestinians animals, and that's not true. He called Hamas animals, and I don't think we should be calling anybody animals. That's horrible language, but you see how we take one thing and we flip it into something else, and then it gives the impression that, look, these people are bad, they're calling human beings animals. I agree with you also. I was nodding when you said that genocide has to do with intent. We can't just look at the population from 48 and look at the population now. Clearly, since October 7th, there have been people dying. You don't have to have millions of people to die for it to be a genocide. You know, thousands of people being killed intentionally is a genocide, but it exactly is on intent. Israel's actions is always to fire at Hamas. And if its intention was to target civilians, why is it that when it fires at Hamas, it sends leaflets from drones and planes warning the civilians to leave? It sends knocker bombs, which is a loud firecracker noise that warns the civilians to go. It calls the phones and text messages the phones of the people in the area warning them to leave. It really does everything to prevent civilian casualties. And every time that it's attacking, it's always targeting Hamas. So it does have to do with intention.
I know that we don't care about like predictions because nobody holds anybody accountable anywhere on the internet, but I do believe that I heard a lot of people say that actually, who did I argue with that said the goal was to push everybody into Rafah, and then once they were all shoved down there, they were all going to be bombed and killed, or that all the people were going to be pushed into Rafah and then forced into Egypt. I believe those were the two big claims, right? And I believe that it was over 1 million people, I think, were evacuated out of Rafah. They managed to do it. Holy fuck. I don't know how. I can't imagine what these roads are looking like with 1 million people moving across these like small tracts of land, but they managed to evacuate over 1 million people out of this area, and they did it. Yeah. So, but remember that the original prediction by people like Ryan Graham, people like Omar Badar, was that all these people were being shoved into this area so they could all be killed, like in a big, huge 500,000 murder strike, or they're going to be forced into the Sinai, into Egypt. But it seems like that didn't happen. But
Genocide is the mass murder of an ethnic or specific group of people with the intention to kill them. Now, have many Palestinians died? Yes. Horrible. Breaks my heart that we're in this situation, and even more so that my own people are involved with this situation. I would like for this to end, but the intention from the Israeli side is not necessarily to fix the situation. That's my big critique of the Israeli government. But it's definitely not to kill Palestinians, and we look at it with the specifics of the actions. And if you're claiming that the intentions was to kill Palestinians, then let's go to...
Does Destiny think invading Rafah is justified? Probably. You probably have to do it.
Palestinians, and we look at it with the specifics of the actions. And if you're claiming that the intentions was to kill Palestinians, then let's go to the specifics. Name me actions, name me times, name me places that there was a situation where Israel specifically attacked with the intention of wanting to kill civilians, and you won't find any. And thankfully you won't find any, because the intention of Israel is not to kill civilians. Now, with these terms, genocide, it didn't start in October 7th.
Why isn't they should let her respond? God, I have such a good response. I could be Palestine's strongest warrior.
Find any, because the intention of Israel is not to kill civilians. Now,
I'm not going to play pro-Pally because these guys should do their own homework, but I wonder if she'll respond to these points.
To kill civilians, and you won't find any. And thankfully you won't find any, because the intention of Israel is not to kill civilians. Now,
the easiest, like the biggest counter to that is, you're right, we cannot find any intention to kill Palestinian civilians because we don't have transparency or insight into the Israeli decision-making apparatus. Why is it that every time we call for an independent investigation into the Israeli IDF decision-making apparatus, we're not allowed to do that? If there's no independent third-party body doing it, why would we trust the IDF to audit itself, when the challenges, or rather the penalties for being wrong would be people would know that they're engaged in war crimes or genocide, right? Would you really trust that government to make those own decisions? Would you trust the United States to verify? There are third-party, organizations that are designed to verify these particular types of things, do these investigations. So when you say we can't find any intent, of course not, because the entire intentionality process is shrouded from us because we can't get in any kind of insight into the idea of decision-making, right? That would be the response. Then there are responses back and forth to that. But... I wish I would.
With these terms,
I'm going to go on some pro-Zionist shit, okay? I'm going to do the Palestinians.
Genocide. It didn't start in October 7th to call Israel committing a genocide against Palestinians. This has been said for a long, long time, even when I was a student on college campuses. What do we hear? Apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing, colonization, settlements. Who's responsible for those things in the world? The West has done that. The West has done apartheids, genocides, ethnic cleansing, colonization, settlements, and today's far left, not the left, but the far left, feels so guilty for the crimes of their ancestors that instead of looking in the mirror for what they've done, what they're really doing is pushing off and whitewashing these issues and pushing it on the Jewish people and being used as a scapegoat like it's always have. And it's using the legitimate suffering of Palestinians as a tool to do so. Now, you spoke about the involvement of America in this conflict. I'm against the U.S. foreign aid to Israel. I don't want Israel to be dependent on any other military. That money is not even actually money. It's credit so that Israel can go and buy weapons, and that money and weapons is giving also to the Palestinian Authority, also to Egypt, also to Jordan, also to many countries in the region. And you ask yourself, why are all these players fighting each other, and then you have one country that's really funding and giving those weapons to each person? So I would like to see less of involvement from the United States in this situation and more.
Fair enough, but has literally any military done that ever? No, because typically when militaries are accused of committing genocide, they're usually from states or military parties that are collapsing, and then there are special trials that are convened to figure out. So you get an unprecedented amount of access. The Nuremberg trials weren't asking, Nazi Germany to hey, can you guys do an investigation and tell us if you guys did anything wrong? It was, well, now we have you, we've got all your archives, we've captured everything, and now we're going to go through all of the evidence, so we're going to look at it, and then you're going to defend yourself based on the evidence that we found, right? So traditionally, when you try to prosecute people for crimes that require high levels of intentionality, you're not expecting those high levels of intentionality to come from the people that would necessarily have to investigate themselves and then exonerate themselves of these types of crimes. So when people have been investigated in the past, you have had a high level of access, but usually this is from collapsing states or states that have been defeated in war, and then their militaries and governments, disbanded or deconstructed, and then people put on trial or whatever.
Of bringing voices of real leaders from the Israeli side and Palestinian side to realize that our aspirations actually do not contradict. I don't believe there will ever be a two-state solution. If you ask most Palestinians, they will completely reject that. You ask most Israelis, they'll completely reject that. So we need to move forward towards a one civilization reality. And the reason I say one civilization, it's intentionally ambiguous because there's many potential ways of how to get there. Federation plans, Puerto Rico style systems, Emirate systems, canton systems like in Switzerland. There are many ways of which we can build that. But I think you're right that Palestinians need the right of return. It's not something I want, it's what they want, it's a non-negotiable. Palestinians need to experience freedom from the river to the sea, and what we need is full economic and political control over Israel. What we need is right of return for Jews as well, safety for the Jewish people, and that Jerusalem is our capital. And so when you break these things down, although right now they're positioned against each other, there is a way that we can create a reality that fills all the needs for both. Okay.
Amazing point right there. And I'm going to give you a chance to respond. We got about 20 minutes left. Alejandro, he talked about that he didn't want to see funding to Israel. Pull up the story that just passed in the House or in the Senate with a $95 billion package. Right now, I want to follow...
Wait, why doesn't she get to respond to this? What the fuck? Well, also, she should also be fighting for a response, too. Destiny, this isn't accurate. You didn't have that for Yugoslavia or Rwanda. I'll be honest, I haven't read through that whole trial. which we really should. If you want to have a strong opinion, if you want to have a really strong opinion, that Yugoslavian, the Bosnian genocide stuff seems like a good thing to read through because there's a lot of written stuff on that. They didn't subpoena things, or they didn't have the ability to investigate or dig into things, or like interrogate or not interrogate. I don't know, depose people. Or there was nothing. It was just there was no access to any of that. I find that hard to believe, but I could be wrong.
The money. So we saw that the Senate passed a $95 billion package sending aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, right? It was, there it is right there. Biden signed the bill, I believe, last week, April 24th to be exact, $26 billion specifically to Israel. Of that amount, I think 19 billion exactly went to Israel, and 7, somewhere in that range went to humanitarian aid to what's going on in Gaza. So I've actually brought in our friend Connor because we're going to follow the money a little bit, especially what's going on, domestic money. But real quick, you don't believe that U.S. should support Israel economically?
Support Israel economically, sure, but that's not what's happening in my opinion. What's happening is that the U.S. is giving credit to Israel. Imagine you have a gift card, and the only way that you could use that money is by buying weapons. However, it comes with conditions. The conditions are that Israel cannot sell any weapons or technology to any other country without the U.S.'s approval. It cannot buy weapons from any other country or intelligence without the U.S.'s approval. And so what we see is us being dependent, and more aid means more dependency on the United States, which means more of an ability for U.S. to push foreign policy onto Israel.
Wait, is this guy going to be on this guy's team?
In the 80s, Israel tried to develop the Lavi program, which was for it to develop its own fighter jets, for Israel to be independent and to create its own source for something that it truly needs. And what did America do? They quickly came and shut that down because they wanted Israel to be dependent on their own fighter jets. So I'm welcoming of a relationship with the United States. I grew up in this country. I'm very appreciative of this country. But I would like to see a relationship that is not toxic. Not a relationship where America can come and tell us what we need to do or how they would like to see it. And in a relationship that if it's support, it doesn't come with conditions.
So would you agree that Israel and America are very strong allies?
Yes and no. I mean, I think if you today go to most Americans, although it is changing with the younger generation on a cultural level, more people are pro-Israel. That's because of the past. But I think in the policies, it's structured in a way to make it seem as if they're pro-Israel. But in its actions, it's really keeping us in this loop. I mean, the reason why Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, which even as a child, I was wearing the orange bracelet being against.
I wonder if Adam told Aaron beforehand, don't argue with this guy too much, or don't scream at him, or don't cut anybody off. This seems like Giga cucked, that she's not allowed to respond to anything.
But that was Bush that forced Sharon to do that. Sharon, the prime minister at the time, is the person who puts the orange bracelet. That's really keeping us in this loop. I mean, the reason why Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, which even as a child, I was wearing the orange bracelet being against from it, that was Bush that forced Sharon to do that.
I have never heard that claim in my life. Hold on, I need to look at that. George Bush, Sharon, what's it called? It wasn't called the withdrawal. It was called the disengagement. Disengagement, Gaza Strip. The day that Bush took Gaza, 2004. President Bush's embrace of Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's plan for unilateral Israeli disengagement with the Gaza Strip is going to turn to be more than a mere gesture. I've never in my life heard that Bush pushed Sharon to do this. Can anybody source or link anything relating to that at all? Letter from President Bush to Prime Minister Sharon. Thank you for your letter setting out your disengagement plan. Okay, that's... I've never heard this in my entire life. Maybe it is, and I'm missing the talks, or I'm missing some subtext or whatever, but I've never heard this claim before, ever.
To make it seem as if they're pro-Israel, but in its actions, it's really keeping us in this loop. I mean, the reason why Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, which even as a child, I was wearing the orange bracelet being against from it, that was Bush that forced Sharon to do that. Sharon, the prime minister at the time, is the person who puts the Jews there. Why would he be the ones removing it? So there's been a lot of pressure from the outside, from the U.S., in my opinion, to allow this conflict to continue.
He did put them there, but the reason I think why he did it was because all of the different situations were becoming untenable. That the capsule theory of making peace with the different types of with different Arab countries and then hoping that somehow peace with Palestinians down the line would come wasn't happening. Right? Camp David and the Taba Summit in 2000 failed. The Second Intifada was destroying and tearing Israel apart from up through almost 2005. And I think Sharon, in some desperate attempt to one is extricate settlers from the Gaza Strip, where a lot of violence was raging on, to pull themselves out of there. And then 2 was to focus on the West Bank. Okay, remember, for nobody understands this or cares about this, but Jewish people don't give a fuck about the Gaza Strip. They really don't care. If the Gaza Strip were to literally fall into the ocean, they don't give a fuck. The historic and religious, for the cringe fucks, attachment is really to the West Bank. That's like the big, huge thing. So pulling out of the Gaza Strip is whatever the fuck. Let them have it. Who cares? So that we can focus on shoring up the demographic majorities that we need in the West Bank so that we can slowly continue to... when was East Jerusalem considered annexed? Did that happen under Netanyahu? I should know that day. Annexation of East Jerusalem. It wouldn't surprise me if it was after 2000, but it could have been before, and I'm just not aware of it. Annexation of East Jerusalem, Wikipedia. Maybe it was way earlier. I'm not sure. Let's check. This is 1980. Okay, so this is, wait, I just saw that there. Okay, it was 1980. Okay, so it was way earlier. This is like the last like formal, okay. So, okay, so it's moving people into East Jerusalem, and then it's moving people all throughout the Area C, basically. But the goal has always been, or the focus has been, to like slowly build out these like settlement enclaves so you've got stronger and stronger claims to the land so that you can make bigger and bigger arguments for annexation because you've got so many people here and so many chunks of people here. And that's like been the thing that Jewish people care about more, or Israelis care about more. The Gaza Strip is whatever the fuck. Nobody cares. That's why it's always like, it's silly when, in my opinion, now maybe there might be some political aspect I'm missing, but like whenever people are freaking out about like, oh no, like Israel's going to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip. Israel wants to ethnically, I don't think Israel gives a fuck about ethnically cleansing the Gaza Strip. Who the fuck cares? They don't care about the Gaza Strip. As long as there's no terror attacks coming from there, they can live there and die there and be imprisoned there forever. Like, who cares? What they really care about are things like East Jerusalem and the West Bank. These are the things they really care about. Yeah. So this, I feel like, again, there could be things that I have completely missed in my studies or in my readings, and I'm missing them, but I've never heard this before, that like, oh no, and it was a big deal, by the way, that Sharon was pulling settlers out of the Gaza Strip. He is right that Sharon was the one who wanted them there, and that when people were pulling settlers out of the Gaza Strip, there were like fights going on where the IDF had to go in and pull people out of their houses, and they were so fucking mad. Because settlers, I think Sharon himself, I feel like this was another PM. I could be wrong, but I thought Sharon himself was like stood and made speeches at one point about how not a single settler would ever leave a particular piece of territory. And then he basically undid that, and he was like, actually, you are going to be leaving the Gaza Strip now. I believe it was Sharon, but my intuition is, or I have a gut feeling it wasn't Sharon, that it was somebody else about the Golan Heights or something. I could be wrong on that. I don't know. Go check it out.
Being against from it, that was Bush that forced Sharon to do that. Sharon, the prime minister at the time, is the person who puts the Jews there. Why would he be the ones removing it? So there's been a lot of pressure from the outside, from the US, in my opinion, to allow this conflict to continue, really to sell weapons to both sides and profit. And so I would like a healthy relationship with the United States. I don't want Saudi Arabia or Qatar or the US or any other country coming into the situation. I would like Israelis and Palestinians to start speaking to each other. Right now, when we see on college campuses, is all the Palestinian students and their allies are speaking to the rest of the world, and all the Jewish students are speaking to the rest of the world, instead of speaking to each other, actually.
This is kind of true. A lot of his like analysis of like what the problems are is kind of true. I feel like some of the facts are a little off here, but the Palestinians and Israelis need to speak to each other without like people from the outside screeching that it needs to be another way. It's like that's hampering and destroying everything.
On the campus is the place where we have freedom of speech, where we can actually engage with one another, learn about the identity, aspirations, suffering, history, and future that we'd like to see from both peoples. And so my message is the only future that we'll see is one that is together, and it could only come when we start uniting and realizing that our aspirations do not actually contradict.
So, foreign policy.
Why is it just an interview for this guy, or it was about the Sinai, I think, but I forget who said it. I think it was an Israeli general. I think you're right. I think it was about the Sinai. Actually, I think it was disengagement with the Sinai, because I feel like if Sharon was the one that had made that statement, I feel like it might have been Begin, actually. Maybe it was Begin in the Sinai. Begin, Sinai, tell settlers, leave, painful. Fuck, am I gonna be able to find this? I think there was a speech he made because Begin was like the radical terrorist, like wacky crazy dude, and then he was the one to pull. And I feel like I remember reading a speech. I'm pretty sure it was Begin. Thank you, and it was the Sinai.
Foreign aid, you're pretty much against what's going on there. I believe, and I'm not as knowledgeable about this, Israel should be sort of grateful that America is its strongest ally. Without America, who knows what the hell can happen in Israel? We just saw Iran shoot hundreds and hundreds of drones and missiles at Israel. It cost, I think, $1 billion to defend that. So there is a case to be made for the military-industrial complex with the
Israel could probably survive without the U.S. The idea that they need us is probably not true. It's nice though, but I'm not even sure if Israel has strong security guarantees from the U.S. They really probably don't, right? Like, I don't think the U.S. is ever putting troops on the ground to defend Israel or anything like that. So
credits, you give all this money here, how many, $19 billion, but that needs to be used to buy more weapons. Totally understand that. You make a great case. That's foreign. Domestic, you talked about what's going on campus, engaging. It's not a lot of engagement going on. I see a lot of shutting down conversation.
They're our ally. If Iran attacks Israel, we would 100% intervene. Really? Because Iran literally attacked Israel and we literally didn't intervene.
A lot of protest. I see what looks like sort of whiny babies about a very grown-up conflict, and then they're shutting down any types of conversation. But it doesn't seem to be organic.
Maybe, I don't know. If there was like, oh God, are we into the Soros funding the protest things? If there was a ground invasion of Israel, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I don't know.
It seems to be organized. And that's why I brought one of Valuetainment's staff writers here. Connor's in the house. Connor, you've been doing some very good research on this left-wing dark money from George Soros. There's actually an image that I want to show, if we can show that. So anti-Israel protests at college campuses are led by activists revealed to be paid fellows of George Soros-connected groups with significant support from U.S. campaign for
We shot down missiles and drones, shooting down stuff, providing air support. You wouldn't say providing air support, providing, I don't know what the word would be, but like interception of missiles from batteries and stuff that are operated remotely or operated by limited force on the ground is a lot different than like full ground invasion and like putting U.S. troops, like mobilizing like U.S. force on the ground shit. That's a way, way, way different thing.
Show, if we can show that. So anti-Israel protests at college campuses are led by activists revealed to be paid.
What the is this cringe?
Fellows of George Soros connected groups with significant support from U.S. campaign for Palestinian rights. Fellows are instructed to rise up and reject reform, receiving payments from $3,000 to $8,000 per individual. You've actually done sort of like a CIA web sort of connect the dot situation here with George Soros, Open Society, and everything there. If you can show the image here. But Connor, you and Shane, shout out to VT.com. Check out their articles there. What have you found here? What is actually going on? Follow the money behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's true. I felt like a crazy person going through this as I made my strings and my notes to connect all the things together. But what this reveals is that the protests we have seen on campus in the last couple months are not as organic as the media would have us believe. They are, in fact, organized from the top down by some of the biggest money groups on the planet. They are structured from the top down, and then money is kicked from group to group until it ends up in the pockets of the people who are running these protests. Now, to your
this is kind of bullshit because I'm just going to use a heuristic. I'm just going to use a heuristic here. If so many people were being paid off by Soros and company, we would have hundreds of examples of this posted online. Like, oh, show me the deposit in your bank. Oh, show me the agreement that you have to protest. Oh, show me a bank transaction with a name attached. Oh, show me logs of somebody you talked to about this. Oh, show me, like, there would be so much evidence of this. The fact that there's nothing but these weird schizophrenic, like, Facebook graphs where I feel like I'm talking to Kevin Spacey from The Usual Suspects. Like, no, come on. This is so stupid.
Point. I am not trying to describe individual protesters as monolithic. They all have their own motivations for being there. Activism is an individual thing. They are doing what they think is right depending on, whatever their convictions are. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am saying is that the organizations that put these things together have a direct pipeline that leads back to people at the very top. This is not a grassroots movement. So like Adam said, let's follow the money.
That's George Soros at the top. If you could pan out, thank you, Alondra.
Can we please get Soros?
I'll consult the screen right here. As you can see, George Soros is at the top. We're all familiar with who he is. Billionaire.
The Soros, the Jew, leading protests against the Jews. Oh, who would have known that in the end, the only people that could have finally stopped these goddamn Jews from taking over Western civilization were our own woke Jews. Jew on Jew action. It's the only way to stop them. We have to appeal to the master races on both sides of the conflict.
Jewish, one of the most recognizable names in global philanthropy around the world.
Okay.
His political action group, his arm for doing things around the world, is the Open Society Foundation. That is, how he distributes his money to different organizations. A lesser-known subsidiary of the Open Society Foundation is called the Tide Center. This is a big nonprofit group that is sort of an umbrella corporation for a bunch of smaller activist groups.
Can we get some numbers? How much money have they thrown towards protests? What are some names of people that have gotten money? What are some dates, events, times, bank records, anything? Like literally anything. Can we get any type of concrete thing at all here? Like a single solid concrete claim?
They can get under the Tide Center and be covered from having to pay taxes. Its other groups include BLM and several other.
Oh wow, BLM, Jesus! Who else are they funding here? The Black Panthers too? The Clintons? Who else is involved? How deep does it go?
From having to pay taxes. Its other groups include BLM and several other left-wing protest groups like that. This group has received hundreds of millions of dollars in government funding and donations.
Oh, okay.
They have over $431 million in assets as of 2022.
This is just a like.
And by the way, a lot of our information on this comes from Influence Watch.
Okay, who are they? Like, are they paying protesters? Is there any evidence of that? Are we just going over the random assets and funding of a company that has to publicly report it? Like, what do we?
Which is a great resource for tracking how money is passed around to these organizations. So the Tide Center has all this money that comes from Soros and the Open Society Foundation.
Okay.
Then that money is passed on to a bunch of smaller groups, including one called Westpac, which is the Westchester People's Action Coalition.
Okay.
They support...
Oh, another quick heuristic, just as a guy that does finance and understands business structure and shit. Anytime somebody's giving you a conspiracy where money is passing through multiple large organizations, if you're ever seeing shit like this, unless these are things called like holding companies or single member companies or single company, whatever things, like you can have like a holding company. So you create a company to hold a couple other companies. You create an entity that represents another entity like that. If this is like a massive company that does business and holds with a ton of other things, and you're trying to say like, oh, well, this guy gives money to this thing. And then this company who also gives money to all these other organizations also gives money to this thing. And then this company that also pays and gives money to all these other organizations also gives money to this thing. And then this guy gave money to this guy who also pays all these, like, this is retarded. You're like, this is like a guy with a PhD in economics decided to publish a new theory of economics after falling in love with a girl that believes in what's the thing with the droplets of water from one to the next? It's not homeopathy. What's it called? The thing. You fucking losers. Dan brings it up every fucking day. It is homeopathy, is it? Oh yeah. It's like combining homeopathy and fungibility of money and trying to say that, like, look, because this organization gave money to this thing and then this organization gave money, like, yeah, all these organizations are dealing business with hundreds of people or thousands of people or dozens of entities. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
The BDS movement, the Green New Deal, and they've frequently clashed with the ADL and other Jewish rights groups over their perceived anti-Semitism. The Westpac group funds a group called Students for Justice in Palestine. That's who's carrying out most of the on-campus protests right now. They are responsible for the one at Columbia and a number of others. That group is also affiliated with...
What do you mean when you say responsible for? Like the students wouldn't be there if they weren't all getting paid, or the organizers wouldn't be there if they're not getting paid, or like, should organizers not get paid to protest at all, or is it not organic at all? Like, do they not even believe? Like, show some evidence of any of this.
With a group called American Muslims for Palestine, allegedly at least. And their finances aren't disclosed, but they do receive directly and credit Westpac for a lot of the money they have been able to use.
What? Businesses do business with each other without looking who owns what and how they align? I can't tell if you're like tongue-in-cheek asking that or if you're sincerely thinking that that's a gotcha. I actually can't tell. I don't know.
For Columbia specifically, the Students for Justice in Palestine partnered with a group called Jewish Voice for Peace, which is a ostensibly Jewish organization that is, again, partnered with a bunch of anti-Israel activists.
What, Jesus Christ! Oh my God!
And they receive, again, millions of dollars, not only from the Open Society Foundation, but also from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. And those two groups also fund the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights.
So here's what I want to know, Connor.
What the f*** what is happening here?
I'm trying to connect all these dots here.
There's a lot of information.
Yes, there's a lot of information, and I appreciate this. Thank you. So you're connecting these dots. Here's what I got.
This is like the fucking Jewish proxy war. Holy f***. My God. There's a Jew behind every major company.
These protests on college campuses. Columbia, Cornell, Minnesota, Texas, California, USC, Emory, Atlanta. If I'm just a normal person, I'm just, these students really care. They really care about what's going on.
You don't think that the students have any care whatsoever? Then get evidence or some examples of any of them like getting paid or like why is there not a single these motherfuckers are on their iPhones more than probably any other demographic in the entire USA. My guess is if you were to take all the protesters and analyze these people, that like 97% of them have iPhones, okay? And 45% are really paid for by their parents on their parents' family plans. You're telling me nobody here has recorded any of this? There's not a single shred of evidence for any of this?
But the reality is, what you've just informed us, is that they're not organic. They're completely organized by George Soros and
left-wing. You can't necessarily say that people don't care about it.
No, they care, clearly.
The people organizing the individual students.
And you brought up a good point. Why do they all have the exact same color tents? Because they're buying in bulk, yes?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what the
You buy in bulk, and that's how you get all the same things.
Okay, and I'm definitely not saying that those college kids, and I kind of feel like you'd be out there protesting for this. Respect, they believe in this. Kind of, because there's also tons of people going out interviewing these people. They're like, what do you mean river to the sea? They're like, yeah, I have no clue what river.
Wow, people at protests having no idea what the they're protesting? Wow, go figure, chief. Americans being utterly fucking clueless?
What country did we declare independence from to celebrate the 4th of July?
I don't know.
What is the purpose of 4th of July celebrations?
I'm going to turn it to the guy in the USA. Sure.
Fireworks. A little more specific. A little more specific.
Celebrating our independence.
There we go. A little more specific still. Independence.
Day.
From a country. Step in here at any time.
What if these aren't real Americans? What if Soros bought and paid for machines to come and impersonate humans? Like, how many of the Occupy Wall Street people knew what it meant for a corporation to be a person? How many BLM people knew who their chief of police was? How many January 6th protesters knew about the electors plot? Welcome to protesting. Nobody knows what the you're talking about ever. That's not unique to the situation.
I have no clue.
Remember what I said before? When a situation comes up and people demand that you have to use a unique analysis for it, like, unless there's a good reason, some things need to be analyzed uniquely, but not these protests. They don't. There's no reason to.
BDS is. I have no clue about apartheid. I just don't want a war. Who the hell wants a war? Nobody. Well, Hamas did. But here's the last point that I want to understand about Soros. What is their purpose? What is their motivation? George Soros' claim to be Jewish, I think he just is way more politically or ideologically motivated than religion. I actually don't think he has.
Oh no! When people talk about like being Jewish and that's like their motivation and Zionism and shit, they're not talking about the religion. That's not what we're talking about.
But here's the last point that I want to understand about Soros. What is their purpose? What is their motivation? George Soros' claim to be Jewish, I think he just is way more politically or ideologically motivated than religion. I actually don't think he has any religion. I think he has a God complex or a Messiah complex. I think he wants to see an open society, open borders. But in summary, what do you think George Soros and his left-wing dark money actually want to see?
I think it is more about anti-Western sentiment than it is about Jew.
I want to clarify. America has a whole aircraft carrier strike group in the Middle East. If Iran invaded Israel, you're not sure if they would intervene. I don't know if we would like scramble planes, deploy troops to the ground. I don't think so. I think we would do like missile stuff, but I don't know if we would ever put our troops in a position where they could be getting killed. I feel like that wouldn't happen. That's my feeling. I could be wrong, but I feel like we did. I mean, we didn't for anything related to Syria. We did in a limited regard for Yemen, but I mean, that was for international trade. The idea of like U.S. troops getting killed by Iranian troops just sounds like a really spooky, that sounds like a really fast track towards some no bueno stuff. Well, although Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons yet. I don't know. It would be complicated with Russian and Chinese involvement too, but I don't know. We literally have troops in Syria. Yeah, but like in a very, very, very limited capacity, right? Like in a very limited defensive capacity that aren't, my understanding is they're not involved in like active combat operations against the Assad regime, right?
Judaism, Israel, Palestine, any of that. It is about dismantling things here. So, in this debate, we've seen, the Israeli side, the pro-Palestine side. What I'm presenting a little bit here is the American side of things, of people who are, kind of standing at a distance from it, trying to figure out where we fit into this.
Yeah.
And what that means is that there are interests funding both sides of it, and both sides don't care about.
It's possible America would intervene. My feeling on it would be no, but I don't have like a huge conviction. I feel like the getting boots on the ground, Middle East type of stuff like that. I feel like we wouldn't do it, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
The American side, that one side or the other wants us to take a stand on it and get involved at the other's expense. And that's where the problem comes in. It's more about harming America, at least with this pipeline of funding, than it is about helping anybody else.
Got it. Thank you, Connor. Check out his articles on VT.com. Last segment, guys.
Wait, Adam, do you not see how ironic it is? How is this not...
Oh, there we go. Okay. We finally got an intervention.
I just think it's so ironic that you're literally insinuating that a single Jewish billionaire is behind this. How is this not just textbook anti-Semitic tropes of you have one Jewish man behind the scenes pulling?
Why would we go to the anti-Semitism thing? Well, I guess we could. That's kind of weird to pull it for the other side, but
the strings. Like, is it really so unbelievable that a bunch of kids that go to a college like Columbia can afford like $27 tents from Amazon to like do these protests?
Yeah, that's true.
It's almost like you didn't listen to one thing he just said and we're waiting to give the canned response. Yes, I do believe that George Soros is that corrupt. Yes, I do believe that George Soros is that evil. I don't think that many college...
Oh, fuck. Listen, okay? Normally I haven't gone on like Value Time or whatever. I don't have anything personally against any of these people. I just haven't gone because I don't want to be on like a panel of like 7 people talking about like pop culture. It's like and because the times that they do their events are the whole fucking day or whatever. Listen, if they're doing big Israel-Palestine debates and they need other pro-Palestinian debaters, I would gladly join these on the pro-Palestinian side, okay? I would do it just because the lack of pushback here was wacky and wild. This was a wacky, wild, one-sided. I think Aaron should have interrupted way more. I hope she asked at the end, oh, okay, sorry. Okay, you're right, Adam. I didn't listen. What was one hard fact that he presented to show? Was it that all the tents were the same color? That's what you're resting your cap on for this one? Your evidence of a top-down conspiracy involving a dozen or so shell corporations or massive NGOs that are all doing hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in business all across the world and funding all this. The evidence for that was that the tents are the same color. Can we bring up a video of the tents and see if they're all the same color? That's like, come on.
In response, yes, I do believe that George Soros is that corrupt. Yes, I do believe that George Soros is that evil. I don't think that many college kids have a lot of money. I do believe that he has billions. And
I don't think many college kids have a lot of money. Has he been in any other videos talking about the unaffordability of college or whatever? Like, wouldn't college kids like definitionally be cut from like the middle or upper middle, especially at Ivy League schools? What do you mean the college? You kids go to Columbia don't have a lot of money? You know the kids that go to Columbia University, a private an Ivy League college, right? In New York City, don't have money for tents? Sorry.
I believe that he's completely trying to build this open society and have a world with no borders. Yes, I do believe that. And just because someone's born Jewish, I don't think they actually are Jewish. Just because you...
What? What are we talking about here?
Have a world with no borders. Yes, I do believe that. And just because someone's born Jewish, I don't think they actually are Jewish. Just because you are born Christian and you start doing wildly ridiculous things, someone says, well, he was Christian. Or just because you were born Muslim. So no, I think that is bullshit to actually think.
Wait, hold on. Born Christian. Didn't he flee like a fucking concentration camp or some shit? Am I making this up? Was he not old enough for that? Am I totally fabricating this? What do you have to be like 80 plus years old? I don't understand what he says. Born Christian. Didn't he not literally come out of like fucking Poland or Hungary or some bullshit or one of these fucking countries? Show me. Oh my God. 93 years old. The Jewish magic. Holy shit. I know the reason I'm pretending I don't know, but the reason why I know this is because some people say that Soros literally escaped by his family selling other Jews to the Nazis or some shit. Like it might not be in the wiki, but I know I've seen that conspiracy theory about him before. Soros was 13 years old in March 1944 when Nazi Germany occupied Hungary. The Nazis barred Jewish children from attending schools, and Soros and the other schoolchildren were made to report to the Judenrat, the Jewish Council, which had been established during the occupation. Soros later described this time to writer Michael Lewis. Soros did not return to that job. His family survived the war by purchasing documents to say that they were Christians. Later that year, at age 14, Soros posed as the Christian godson of an official of the collaboratist Hungarian government's Ministry of Agriculture, who himself had a Jewish wife in hiding. Oh my God! Wait, this actually makes it so much more disgusting if that's actually true. Oh no, George. Oh fuck! I would have to like read an autobiography. I'm just going by what's cited in the fucking. In the wiki here. Maybe this is a lie or whatever, but he thinks that George Soros was Christian. Wait.
Build this open society and have a world with no borders. Yes, I do believe that. And just because someone's born Jewish, I don't think they actually are Jewish. Just because you are born Christian and you start doing wildly ridiculous things.
Oh, never mind. I hardcore misinterpreted that. I'm sorry. I thought he meant like just because you were born Christian and then start doing other things. So I think he's using an example. Right. He wasn't saying that Soros was born Christian.
Someone says,
or he wasn't saying that he was Christian. Whatever.
Christian, or just because you were born Muslim. So no, I think that is bullshit to actually think that he's on the side of anything but himself and corrupting society.
Who is a Jew in your eyes?
Here's what I'll do. Let's actually try.
He must have told. I think he told her at the start, like, don't argue with this guy much. I just want to like bring him on an interview and give like the false air of, like a debate, because he wants to give this guy a softball.
And on a positive note, because I don't think George Soros is doing anything to help society, but we will.
Says who? This is like one of the most philanthropic fucking donors to like world issues, like in the fucking history of the fucking planet. Like, you can disagree with some of his political shit, but we're gonna throw all of it under the bus. What is all the fucking? I mean, we are, because he's apparently the reason for all immigration and. Is he the most philanthropic person in the world? He might have donated the most. I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that. Time magazine in 2007 cited two specific projects, $100 million towards infrastructure for regional Russian universities and $50 million for the Millennium Promise to eradicate extreme poverty in Africa, noting that Soros had given $742 million projects in the U.S. and given away a total of more than $7 billion. Other notable projects have included aid to scientists and universities throughout Central and Eastern Europe, help to civilians during the siege of Sarajevo, and Transparency International. Maybe this is the immigrant mass migration one. Soros also pledged an endowment of 420 million euros, right, to the Central European University. $60 million to Bard College, establishing the Bard College Center for Civic Engagement. He founded the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Wait, what? And Ukrainian Bios Weapons Lab. I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry.
You're very pro-Palestinian.
Yes.
You're very pro or anti-war. Would you say that you're anti-Israel?
No.
Would you say that you're anti-Jewish?
No.
Okay. You're very pro-Israel. You're also very pro-American. Would you say you're pro-American? Mm-hmm. When you hear chants like from Iran or even Palestinian protesters chanting death to America, how do you feel about that?
Not my thing.
What do you mean?
I'm not pro anyone chanting death to America.
Okay, so you're pro-America.
Yeah, sure.
Good, we're on the same page here.
What about the pallet of bricks during the BLM riots? What about the palace brick during the BLM riot? Wasn't that proven to be true? Was that bullshit too? All of those were disproven. Those were some of the most retarded fuck conspiracies ever. There were people that actually went on, I think they just used like or it might have even been Google Maps or whatever, but there were so many of those stupid fucking pictures that were posted where it's like, look at this pallet of bricks that was brought in by like the secret Jewish police so that BLM activists could have bricks to throw, and they were brought in earlier. But if you check for all of these, every single time this was the case, there was a guy that did a huge Twitter thread on these. Every single time there was like a nearby construction project, and if you looked like days or weeks earlier, the same pallet of bricks was already there. This is fucking bullshit.
You're also pro-Palestinian.
Yeah. Look, I believe America has a right to exist and that Americans should definitely not be targeted. But I'm very critical about America's involvement in foreign policy in the Middle East. And I wouldn't say that I'm just pro-Palestinian as a human rights cause. I'm pro-Palestinian as a family cause. These are my people. There's no future where my children will not be raised with their children on this land that we are eternally connected to. So it's more than just, oh, I happen to be pro-human being no matter who it is. Palestinians, there's an extra degree of closeness with them. So I'm not pro-Israel. I am Israel. Same way that I didn't wake up this morning realizing, oh, I'm going to be pro-Rudy today. I'm obviously pro my own interest. So Jews aren't pro-Israel. We are Israel. And I am pro-Palestinian very much so.
So what I want to do is, there's been talk of this two-state solution forever. Trump just came out and deeply criticized Netanyahu today. If you could pull that up right there. I want both of you, who seem to be very obviously engaged in this and literally engaged in battle. You were in Gaza fighting what I believe are terrorists. Trump is now ripping Netanyahu over October 7th, saying the Hamas attack should have never happened. That's literally today he said that. Thank you, Trump. What's your solution? If you can bring some solution to this that's realistic. I'm going to let you go first, and then I'm going to give Rudy the final word. What's your solution to try to make this a peaceful arrangement and then where both sides can live together? Because when I hear from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, sounds great, but that means eliminating all the Jews from Israel. How many Jews live in Israel?
About 8 to 9 million.
All right, so it's only another Holocaust, no big deal. The world seemed to be okay with that in the 40s. What's your solution?
Wait, was it 8 to 9 million? I thought it was like 7 million. Population, Israel. Oh, maybe he just thinks how many people live in Israel. I think it's about 9.5. I think it's about 7 million Jews, I guess like 2 million Arabs, and like, is it like 500,000 like Bedouin Druze? I don't remember how many, the other ethnic breakdown. Israel, ethnic, control F, ethnicity should find me. 73% Jews, 21% Arabs, and 6% others.
Solution. What should be done with Israel? Because every time there's a negotiation, it's always the Palestinians that reject it. So I would love to see a Palestinian, whether it's Fatah or PLA or fucking Hamas, say, okay, Israel has the right to exist. Here's what we want. But unfortunately, they want from the river to the sea. By the way, do you know what river and what sea we're talking about?
The Jordanian River and the Mediterranean Sea.
That a girl? I would be.
That was the dumbest thing that Aaron could have said. Fuck. She's normally so snarky. What happened? Her response should have been, do you?
In the Mediterranean Sea.
That a girl? I'd be willing to venture that most protesters have no clue. What would you like to see? 1 minute or less.
This is the $1 million question. This is a conflict that spans several decades. It's been attempted.
Because there's been multiple times in this conversation where Adam has mixed up Palestine with West Bank, or he said like this is the population of the Gaza Strip and Palestine. Like he has made these things multiple times, which is fine. He doesn't have to be like subject matter expert or whatever. It's okay. He's just the moderator for this. But the quizzing here of that was like, really?
To be solved by several American presidencies, so many different prime ministers, so many different foreign dignitaries. I don't think I could tell you in one succinct way that I have the solution.
No, not you, but speaking on behalf of, I'm putting you as sort of like the poster child of literally the kids protesting to divest and boycott and sort of be anti-Israel, anti-war. What would you like to see? What's realistic?
I would favor any solution that meets certain conditions, so one that institutes the right of return for Palestinian refugees, that puts an end to the ongoing occupation, that puts an end to the blockade, and ideally a secular democratic state where both Israelis and Palestinians have equal rights in all territories. Okay. Whether that be a one-state or two-state solution, I personally, like, my personal opinion is on that is kind of irrelevant. I think that the international legal framework favors a two-state solution. I personally don't have a preference towards one or two states. If it were, as long as those preconditions are met, I would be satisfied.
So, Rudy, I'm going to let you kind of wrap this thing up, but you know, Israel and Netanyahu has been very clear in order for there to be a ceasefire. By the way, there was a ceasefire on October 6th. Hamas broke the ceasefire. I think that's fair to say. They've been very clear. We want our hostages back until we get our children back. You said that, you know, Israeli.
That is not the only condition. If they would have offered the hostages back immediately after October 7th, which I think they tried to, Israel still would have went to war. It is not just to get the hostages back. That is the dumbest, far Zionist. I don't know if you want to say. I don't even know if it's only Zionist to say that. The idea that they just want the hostages back is bullshit. That is not true. And it doesn't even need to be. You don't even have to defend that point. You can, there's a righteous cause for war here that is irrespective of any hostage taking. But like the idea, like, oh no, they're going to war. They want the hostages back. Like bullshit. That's like a tertiary at best, goal for the conflict.
Be clear. We want our hostages back until we get our children back. You said that, you know, Israelis and Palestinians are cousins in our family. Well, Israel has been known to want to get their children back, the children of Israel. They said, yeah, there's zero ceasefire until we get the hostages back. Hamas has actively declined this.
This is an unfathomably pro-Zionist talking about like, oh, the only thing Israel wants is just the hostages. That's not true. Israel wants Hamas gone. The administrators, the current governing body needs to be gone. It is not just getting the hostages back. That's not true.
Care if Palestinians end up dead. Anthony Blinken basically said, Hamas, take it or leave it. Take this freaking deal. Do you have that article about the ceasefire? Show that. U.S. is now hopeful Hamas will accept Israel's newest ceasefire offer to Hamas. Blinken said it was extraordinary generous offer. The Gaza war, U.S. hopeful will accept the ceasefire. Hamas has shown no indications that it's going to happen. Rudy, final word here. What's going to happen? How will there be a ceasefire? What would you like to see this solution? On one end, there's the two-state solution. On one end, we've heard the final solution for Jews for all too long. What is actually a realistic solution here?
So to conclude here, I'll definitely go right back and say George Soros, even though he might be acting against the Jewish people, is a Jew no matter what. Because we're not a belief system, we're an actual ancient civilization of native people, and he is acting against the Jews, and to call him out for doing so is not anti-Semitic either. So there's nuance within both of what you said. There's the short term and there's the long term. Short term with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict right now happening with Gaza, we must bring back all the hostages, we will bring them home, we must take out Hamas and remove them from power, we must install security for Israel.
Those are probably the three big conditions, yes. More accurate than just the hostages or whatever.
And the Palestinians and all the civilians that are living in this land. That's number one. Now, on the long term, in order to get there, we need to understand the injustices that are happening on both sides, because there is no peace without justice on both sides. And we need to understand the aspirations that both people have. In order to get to a solution, it must include both for both peoples. A two-state solution actually does neither for either, because both peoples want to live from the river to the sea, and so already doesn't achieve the aspirations. And because there's no aspirations, there will be conflict and fighting, which will only lead to continued injustice and insecurity. So any solution that will come will be a journey, will be a process, will not be a piece of paper printed by a US printer, brought to the Israelis and Palestinians have to sign that. It will be a process and a journey for which Israelis and Palestinians will begin to rise up, understand that we're not only human beings, but cousins to each other, that we both belong into this land, and Israelis need to start hearing what are the needs of Palestinians, what are their identities, what are their experiences, what are their aspirations, and Palestinians need to do the same to the Israeli people. For me, it is only one civilization civilization solution. And again, it's intentionally ambiguous because there's many potential ways in which that can happen, where Israelis and Palestinians have freedom from the river to the sea, are treated equally, but also we're able to achieve our ancient aspirations of having Jerusalem as our holy capital city, as having Israel as our reinstated civilization and country. Now, the problem with the right of return for Palestinians in this...
Yes, okay. Aaron's not allowed to talk, and I don't know if she knows the counters for these, and then Adam won't say anything, but the sneaky way that he's saying this is, I don't believe that he wants a one-state solution with equal rights for Palestinians and Israelis. And this is, when we spoke, I kind of pushed against this a little bit, but like we didn't, again, like I said, we got coffee. I'm not going to debate him. But like, it feels like his grand idea is that you have a one-state solution where Jews and Israelis are basically like the big voting bloc and they're doing their thing. And then you've got like a bunch of small, disconnected, not Bataustans or whatever, what they call them. I shouldn't say that, that's really loaded. But you basically have a bunch of small villages and stuff that have this kind of like semi-autonomous Palestinian rule of, not Palestinian rule, I'm sorry, rule of like different families and enclaves basically. But you wouldn't have a Palestinian nation in any functional capacity. Oh, cantons or whatever. There would be no functional Palestinian nation. It would just be one Israeli nation from river to sea with like Palestinian villages having some kind of like autonomous control. That's essentially what he's advocating for, which I don't think anybody would back away from. I don't think any Palestinian would be like, yeah, this sounds like a great thing. But he'll allude to the fact that, well, no, there are villagers that want it, but if they come up and say it, they'll get shot and killed. That's a point that's worth fighting over, but I doubt that that'll get pushed back here.
The equation is usually demographics. Now, I work on a big project that maybe in the next time we can talk about, on a project called We Were Never Lost, which is bringing tribes of Israel back to Israel. Today, the 15 million Jews are the descendants of 2.5 tribes out of 12, which means we have 9.5 tribes still out there that if they were to return, the demographics of Palestinians returning back home would not threaten the idea of a Jewish democracy to the...
This is the second plan, is if you can bring back 50 million Israeli Jews, or 50 million Jews, then fine. You can bring back all the Palestinians because there's going to be so many of us. We'll always have like the Jewish character protected anyway.
Jewish people. So there are ways of getting to the solution, but the solution will never happen on either side if we don't look at the injustices Palestinians face and realize that as Israelis, although we didn't create it, we do have the power now to correct it and to fix it, and we have a responsibility to do so. And Palestinians need to understand that the Jews aren't foreigners. We are the indigenous people to the land. If you dig in the land, you find our history, you find our archaeology, you find our anthropology. We are the people that are indigenous from them. There's nowhere else that we're going to go, even if we had other places.
Is that what he told you for coffee? He's never said that in any of his videos? Okay, well, in that case, I could be misrepresenting what he told me. My bad. If he's never said any of this before, I doubt he told me some novel thing. The way that he made it sound was that the way that let me try to represent this as best as I remember. He said, and then if you've seen more videos, maybe there's some more detail, maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but he basically says that the aspirations of the Palestinian people and the aspirations of the Israeli people are different. Israeli people, their aspirations include basically the recovery of the ancient kingdom of Jerusalem, the ancient kingdom of Judea, of Israel. I don't know what the fuck the old bullshit ass kingdom in year zero or whatever it was, right? That basically Israel wants to rebuild that kingdom, have a thriving democracy from river to sea, all the territory essentially they control, and they've got democratic control, and they've got protections for Jewish people and the Jewish character, and all that is protected. Palestinians don't have the aspiration for a state, okay? They don't have that aspiration for a country. They're way more locally focused. Like he said it a little bit in this video, like families are focused and communities are focused, and that's it. And so there can be some kind of carve out where they're basically allowed to live in a happy way that they want to live, and other Palestinians can come back, but the government and the control of the territory and the character of the territory is essentially Jewish in nature, with just like enclaves basically of Palestinians living places. When he was talking to me, that was basically my take on what he was saying. And then his 12 tribes project, the goal is to bring back so many more Jewish people by expanding who is considered Jewish, that even if you do a right of return for all the Palestinians, and if you were to give them all voting rights, it wouldn't threaten the Jewish character of Israel anyway. That was my takeaway from what he was saying. Maybe I misunderstood something, but
we could go, we wouldn't go there. So there's an acceptance that needs to come from both sides and an understanding that there is no future without the other.
I love it. This has been an amazing conversation. I think we need more of these conversations. Here's how I'd like to conclude this.
This is God. I don't know when my Decoding the Gurus episode comes out, but I talk about this when we talk about, I say that like, for a lot of the things that I say, I think I say a lot of things that are red flags to where if I heard anybody else say them, I would never listen to this person. Like, oh, wow, you want to have like balanced conversations where both sides are represented and they're civil and, you know, you're giving good talking time to both areas so they can flesh out the arguments. Like, that's so cool. Good job, Destiny. Right. And I was like, yeah, I do think I do a good job at representing both sides and things. But if I hear anybody else say that, I assume that they're never doing that. I would make all of the opposite assumptions. Like what just happened at the end of this. This is like clearly a super one-sided debate where another guy even got brought in. Aaron had like fucking 7 minutes of talking time to this guy's like 45 minutes. Adam was like agreeing with him the entire time. Like this was not even remotely close to a good conversation. It wasn't even a good conversation.
You can say literally one thing. What's the one thing he said that you're like, you know what? I didn't know that. Thank you for that information. I'm going to consider that. And same for you. Oh, okay, cool. Never heard that. Good point. What's the one thing that maybe changed your perspective about the Israeli position?
I feel like speaking with you today, it's it's hard to say that it's. I think we both are familiar with the points that the other person were making, where we agree and disagree is obviously what we're hashing out. But I did think it was interesting for you to frame it as like one civilization. I've never heard that framing from somebody who considers themselves pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian or interested in this conflict. And I do think that is like an interesting way of like framing the conversation beyond just looking at statehood purely, right? So that's something.
Fair enough.
It is, but it's strategic, right? Because he'll say one civilization, and I don't mean to put words into his mouth. I'm not trying to say he's a bad actor or whatever. I just think he's sophisticated in these conversations. He'll say one civilization, but if you were to say, oh my God, tomorrow, we actually brought together all the Palestinian local leadership and negotiators and Netanyahu, and we actually have a deal on the table right now for a one-state solution with peace between everybody. But everybody gets equal voting rights, and we get to bring all the Palestinians back as well, about 5 million of them. So it'll be like 50% Jews, 50% Arabs. But everybody's like happy with that deal. Would you agree with it? He would say, fuck no. Not until I get the other 9.5 tribes here, okay? I need to bring my boys, all right? No shot are we doing a 50-50 Jew-Arab state. Fuck that. Guaranteed.
You have this conversation all the time. Clearly you know your stuff. Respect to you. From using her as sort of a symbol of what's going on amongst these campus protests. What did she say, or what resonated with you? It's like, they do have a good point there. What's the final thing you want to say there?
So yeah, this is what I do, so I can't say there's something new that I've heard, but I can see in your essence and in your soul you truly care about human life. You're not here to be against Israel, against the Jewish people, and you want justice for the Palestinians, and from that I respect that. And I know that your intentions are pure, and in the final reality, what we'd like to see, we wouldn't disagree. And I think if we had more conversations like this on platforms like yours, on other platforms, on college campuses, we'd realize that the true intentions and ambitions that the collectives had, Israelis and Palestinians, are not contradictory, and all those who are allies to each cause.
What's the difference between a hostage and a prisoner of war? That's a really good question. My understanding is that a hostage is somebody that's captured who is either not targetable. Basically, they shouldn't ever be involved in military occupation. Or I'm sorry, they shouldn't ever be involved in military conflict. So it might be a civilian, it might be somebody that's surrendered or is to combat, so like an injured soldier or something. These are people that are just captured and then used for like political purposes. And a prisoner of war is like an active military unit that has surrendered to you that you've now captured, and then you have to house like a prisoner. A prisoner of war and a hostage are two incredibly different things. Hostages are people that aren't parties to a current armed conflict. Careful for that though, because like you could theoretically, I believe, I'm positive. I'm 99% positive. I'll live a 1% car right here. If I were to invade another country in like a surprise attack and then capture like 100 soldiers and then bring them back, that would not be considered prisoners of war. They would be considered hostages. So if on October 7th, for instance, Hamas captured military people on that attack, that was a surprise, undeclared attack. Nobody was engaged in a current armed conflict for that. Every single person captured, even military people, would be considered hostages, not prisoners of war, is my understanding. Yeah, you can Google like IHL, prisoner of war versus hostage. The International Convention Against the Taking of Hostages defines the offense as the seizure or detention of a person, the hostage, combined with threatening to kill, to injure, or to continue to detain the hostage in order to compel a third party to do or to abstain from doing any act as an explicit or implicit condition for the release of the hostage. The elements of crime for the International Criminal Court uses the same definition but adds that the required behavior of the third party could be a condition not only for the release of the hostage but also for the safety of the hostage. It is the specific intent that characterizes hostage taking and distinguishes it from the deprivation of someone's liberty as an administrative or judicial measure. So when they come over and they take hostages and say like when they use them essentially as like bargaining chips, or they threaten like future harm or action against them, or they say that they'll locate them in buildings, so if Israel bombs them, they'll be killed. This is a human shield. These would be considered like hostages. Now, you can be upset about the administrative detention of Palestinians in Israel or in the West Bank, and there might be a good reason to be upset about that, but people try to call those people hostages. That's not true. They're not really being used necessarily as like bargaining chips or political things. You could argue that military process is unjust for how they're blah, blah, blah. You could argue that, but hostages, I don't think it really like fits there. Although the prohibition of hostage taking is specified in the Fourth Geneva Convention and is typically associated with the holding of civilians as hostages, there is no indication that the offense is limited to taking civilians hostage. Common Article 3 of the Geneva Conventions, the Statute of the International Criminal Court, and the International Convention Against the Taking of Hostages do not limit the offense to the taking of civilians, but apply it to the taking of any person. Indeed, in the elements of crime for the International Criminal Court, the definition applies to the taking of any person protected by the Geneva Conventions. And I believe that a military person who's not a current party to an armed conflict, meaning just because you're a soldier doesn't mean you're a party to a current armed conflict, can be taken as a hostage. They wouldn't be considered a prisoner of war. Okay.
Let's say non-Jews that are pro-Israel, non-Palestinians that are pro-Palestinian, they all need to realize that they need to help us come together, not be pulling us apart.
All right. Thank you. Rudy, thank you for what you do, genuinely, on behalf of people that support Israel and Zionists. And thank you for being respectful and open-minded and being willing to share your opinion. And thank you guys for being here. Sub to the channel, SOScast here on Valuetainment. Rudy's channel, RudyRochman.
Or on Instagram, Rudy _ Israel. Israel's my
I keep saying the CH, it's Rochman.
Rochman.
But it's the CH that gets
me. Oh, good, you're Ashkenaz.
And then not so erudite on...
no, that's Kyla.
I'm not Kyla, sorry.
I'm
Why did I say
Straight-Aid.
Straight-Aid.
I think it's because we both have black hair.
That's what, I mean, I know the difference between Aaron and Kyla. Anyway, Straight-Aid on there. I appreciate this conversation, and more to come, only here on Valuetainment. See you guys later.
It's the SOScast, baby.
I love you guys, be careful. Ribena cappuccino, my shirt. Ribena cappuccino, cappuccino, my dudes. I'll catch you guys next. Stream it out. Check out destiny.gg/shop. For cool stuff, okay.